What is crack-a-lackin', fellow thermonuclear AFers? I am Dan Favale, joined by my certified fantabulous co-host Grant Hughes for part 2 of our three-quarter season awards check-in, where we have Rookie of the Year, Sixth Man of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and hopefully we don't go too long because we have all NBA, all defense, and all rookie teams to get to as well. I hope this doesn't become a three-part podcast, but it's Grant and I, so you can never sort of count that out. And if you have not checked out our first part where we did MVP, Exec of the Year, Coach of the Year, Most Improved Player, which was a doozy. I mean, the MVP discussion was long, but we named like 80 players when it came to the Most Improved discussion. So go check that out. Grant, though, as we record this, and very quickly, stats that we mentioned all locked as of March 1st. This is going up on Monday, but everything we're mentioning statistically locked as of March 1st. We also recognize a lot of these races, we will do it at the end of the year, could change. I also am, to make it different, I'm going to try, and we might crowdsource it if you join our Discord. I'll put it out to our Discord members to go and make their own votes, and we'll see like what the listeners collectively, who the listeners collectively pick might be fun for these awards. But it's an even bigger day because after we record this, Grant is going to go win the CrossFit Open on March 1st, that segment. So he is here a few hours before he just goes and absolutely kills it. Grant, how are you doing?
I'm inspired by your confidence. That's really probably that's how I'm doing mostly. You say win, I say complete, hopefully. And it's the scale division. So anybody that knows anything is going to be less impressed. If I do well in the scale division, I might do performance division on Monday. We'll see. So we'll report back at some point. By the time you hear this, though, I will have either succeeded or failed or done something in between. And that's kind of how I'm approaching all these awards and all NBA and all rookie and all defensive. We might succeed or fail, but probably fall somewhere in between because, man, like some of this was just like agonizing, right? Like you said like, oh, we mentioned 80 players. Like, I feel like I'm just giving participation trophies to like half of the league on a lot of this because there's guys you can't not mention, even if, there's no way they're going to be on your first team or your second team, but like you can't not say the name just because they deserve it.
You don't want like any fan base to feel like we have an agenda against them. And so it's like if so-and-so doesn't make your all NBA team or your all defense team, you don't want it to be a situation like that's a between the ears thing. I think there are some podcasters, many of which are just going to be more successful than us because they don't do this, who don't care about leaving off or pissing off people. But it's like, no, I need to mention, like, it was funny because someone on Twitter mentioned our long most improved player list. And so they went like to players 300, like they did a meme, players 355 and had Najee Marshall, so-and-so, and Kelly Olynyk.
Oh, we forgot those guys.
I was like, you laugh, but we mentioned one of these players on a podcast yesterday, and it was Kelly Olynyk. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Was any of these the remaining 3 awards? I think, like, were any of them just easy? Like, what was the easiest one for you to do?
Oh, man. Well, I would say, I think maybe like my all NBA second team, that's not an award, but like the hard part was the first team and like specifically the 5th guy, which if you listen to our MVP, we kind of spoiled it. But I felt good about the second teamers, like really good. But other than that, I think Rookie of the Year got a little easier for me over the last several days. But I mean, even that is like not a done deal, right? Like,
no, because I think people forget that's a full season award. And let's save that one for last. Where do you want to go to start off? And if anyone wants to hear the criteria and methodology in full, we both went on like 2-minute long monologues in the first part. Go check that out. I promise you, we've looked at numbers, we've listened to other people, read other people. And just because we're not mentioning every nook and cranny of a player's case or not a case, it doesn't mean that we didn't factor it in. It doesn't mean that we've been inconsistent. I'm sure I've been inconsistent with my logic, but like, it's hard. We're trying to button this up to where, hey, it's only a 2-hour podcast instead of an 8-hour podcast.
We're all doing our best out here. So we have Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year, and 6th Man are our like individual ones that we haven't done yet, right? Let's start with 6th Man.
Terrified already.
Yeah, this was one, like the only thing I'm sure about is that the criteria for this award are like stupid and don't make sense. And it's almost always wrong. Like, it's just like the yay points off the bench thing. Which, having said that, we're probably mostly just going to talk about guys that score a lot of points off the bench. So it's kind of unavoidable, even if that feels.
I cannot wait to disprove that
Oh,
theory by
good,
the end.
good. I like that a lot. Okay, so I have a guess where you're going to go with your number one, so I'll just give you mine here. Mine is Malik Monk for Sixth Man of the Year. He is very much like a yay points guy, but also
But
underrated playmaker. And the key for me, and this is the argument I made when I did the write up for BR, is that like there's certain types of six men that come in halfway through the first quarter, play against backups, play a lot of the second quarter, and maybe you don't see him that much in the second half. That's not really Malik Monk. He averages more fourth quarter minutes than any other reserve. So the Kings put him out there. They view him as one of their five best guys. He plays, the most meaningful minutes and has a significant role in those minutes. So, 15, basically a 15-5 guy, decent shooting splits, but I think the differentiator for me with this award is that the Kings don't play him like your typical six man. Like he is out there in high leverage minutes. And so that kind of just decided it for me. Has a bunch of, he rates among like a lot of starters in terms of like clutch points and fourth quarter minutes and like that kind of, and even assists. So that sort of set him up it made it a little bit like sort of cognitively clearer for me because he just seemed a little different than some of the other guys we're going to consider. I don't know that I'd say like, oh, he's objectively a better player than all these guys, but like the role that he's in is different. So that's kind of my thinking on having him be my number one there.
yeah, so I considered him at number one, and he is my number two. And I think that, look, you said it's the yay points. I think he's kind of improved his directionality as a scorer. It's the passing for me that made it real, and the fact that, he could close for this team that made this decision really difficult with who to pick number one over him. I ultimately went, did you want to take a guess?
Is it Naz Reid?
Yes, it's Naz Reid for me. And he's not yay points, and he's not going to close if things are going right for Minnesota. But when you look at his value and your ability he just works with either big. The numbers are just there. With Karl-Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, it doesn't matter. Maybe you wish that he could play as the lone big a little bit more. They, one, don't really have the time available for that to happen. And two, I think he has improved his rim protection this year. I think what we've also seen is that he's really good. It's not just switchable. It's like actually able to stay in front or move laterally against guys on the perimeter. And that's a huge skill if you, one, want to run with dual bigs, and two, just in general, to look at a guy, whether, even if you considered him your center, but the fact that he's able to guard on the perimeter so well, that coupled with the 3-point shooting this year, and then also he still has that floor game. Like the efficiency inside the arc has kind of declined, but a lot of that has to do with the fact that this isn't someone who's just a play finisher in those situations. The Timberwolves are working with finite space in the half court most of the time because of the lineups they run out there with the dual bigs, but just also some of their, some of their wing shooters have just been disappointing this year, or they're just considered non-shooters to begin with. And so to have somebody who can kind of work the crevices and have the handle necessary to take guys off the dribble if he needs to attack from a closeout situation, or even just from a standstill, go at a defender, his game is more expansive. And I think that the impact he has on the Wolves, it belies or it needs to transcend the volume that we're seeing, because there are going to be guys that have more minutes because Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert are in front of him. And if you want to say, well, like sixth man, I want someone who I know is going to close like even 50% of the time for this team. I kind of get that, but from just what I've watched of Naz Reid this year, he feels like he has been, bar none, the most impactful reserve to me. And I think the only player that gave me pause was Malik Monk. And there are other guys who are going to show up when we just talk about this, but Monk was and I might pick Monk by the end of the year at this rate, depending on how the season just ends. But this was one of the closer 1-2s for me for sure.
Yeah. I got Naz Reid at 3 on mine. My number 2 though is Norm Powell. And I think a lot of people will be surprised that we have not said Tim Hardaway Jr. yet. He's kind of in my worth of mentions. Because I think I could be mistaken. I haven't looked today, but I think Hardaway is the betting favorite, right? Or maybe it's Monk, but Hardaway had that title for quite a while. I think
Monk is now the betting favorite, and I had him 3, by the way. So I'm just going to throw that up there so that you could vamp.
Powell, okay, yeah, no. So it's the yay points thing, but also Powell is far and away the most. I guess the other guy that we should probably mention. I don't know where he is on yours. In addition to Hardaway, who I'm going to put Hardaway 5th, I guess, is Bogdan Bogdanovic at 4. Bogdanovich is a little more of the score facilitate makeup than like say Hardaway and Powell, for example. Maybe even better at that stuff than Monk, if not necessarily this year. But Powell's distinguishing feature is just efficiency. Like he's 63-1 true shooting. And just to compare that, Hardaway is at 55-6, which I'm pretty sure is a tick below the league average in true shooting percentage this season. And Bogdanovich is 56-6. Powell has just been like, an unbelievable 3-point shooter, can still slash, call him one-dimensional, I guess. Like he's not out there to pass the ball. Like his assist rates are like laughably lower than, even Hardaway's, for example. But like, and way below Bogdanovich and way below Monk. But Powell is just like, he's the surest bucket of any of those guys. And you might say like, with the exception of like, well, Luka is going to set up Hardaway for easy shots. Like Powell has Harden doing that. I'm just like, I'm not going to care that much about like how these guys are scoring. They're not always playing with starters. So Powell's efficiency just does it for me. That's why I had him there. I think there's definitely an argument for Reed to be above him or even Monk, but I can't get there putting Hardaway or Bogdanovich. And I'm not going to go way deep on my ballot because we're going to need to finish this in under 7 hours. So I think, what do you think about that? Is that the case for Powell for you too? Is just the efficiency?
Well, it's the efficiency, but it's also like he gives the Clippers two things that I think they desperately need is that ability to give you rim pressure with the ball in his hands, or just right off the catch. And then two, it's hard to thrive within an ecosystem where hey, I might be the fifth option in most of these lineups just because I know I'm going to be the fourth. If I like to have someone who can play with all the stars or two of the stars and fit in so seamlessly, that's a really big deal that I think people kind of underrate sometimes. And so if you're going to do that and then have like the volume scoring with the efficiency, that's sort of a no-brainer case. And so like I think you could make a case for, yes, if any of these my three players won the award. I can't get there with Bogdanovich. I had him fifth, but it's just like some of the noise there defensively. Maybe that's because like he's kind of shifted when the Hawks were at full strength. Like he's been nudged into defensive spots that he really shouldn't be. But he's a worthwhile candidate as well. My fourth, I know I said that Naz Reid and Malik Monk were super close, but like it wouldn't shock me if Norman Powell just not came out of left field, but won this award this season. Like giving what happens during the closing stretch, even though the Clippers are struggling right now. Do you want to know who my fourth is?
It's a mystery because I thought we would have like at least a similar five. I'm looking forward.
Isaiah Joe, baby.
Yeah, there he is.
If he could just play more, if the Thunder were playing him more, I might have him winning the award. Just because per minute, I think he's been no worse than like the second most impactful reserve. And there are going to be times like he could close because like Gideon Dort aren't givens against certain matchups. But I just averaging under 20 minutes a game for the year, I can't get there. It's just too. That's like too, Naz Reid, I think is at 21.2 or whatever it is. So that was enough. But like for me, I just looked at that number and it's not just the shooting. Yeah. Okay. 43.5% from deep is great. But like, this is someone who will cut to the basket. He can put the ball on the floor a little bit. And I think aside from just the movement he gives you on the offensive end, knowing where to be in the right spots, knowing what to do in transition, this is someone who works his ass off defensively. And it's a lot easier to be complimentary of a player's defense and effort when like they get to play with Chet and J-Dub and Lou Dort and even Shea this year. But like, holy crap, Isaiah Joe is going to be more physical on the defensive end than he gets a lot of credit. And so I find myself not wishing because I don't necessarily care who wins these awards, but like I watch him and I'm just like, if he had a bigger role, and I think you could make the case that he should have a bigger role when you see how uneven Josh Giddey's been specifically. And then Lou Dort, one of the best defenders in the game, been taking better shots lately, but there's like peaks and plunges to the way he plays at both ends. And you don't have that hit or miss element with Isaiah Joe. And so I lament that he's not higher just because I think he has been that good.
Yeah, that's fair.
So you wanted to run through deep cuts. I have another 5 names on mine. Do you want me to just paste them in there?
Go for it.
So one of these guys I think is going to be ineligible. And also I didn't include Emmanuel Quickly because he should be ineligible by the end of the year. And it's just, how does the case get made like for what he was doing with the Knicks? But another one who falls under that umbrella, and I did include him, was I wonder where Pods would end up here for me if he wasn't a starter now. It ultimately doesn't matter, but I included him in my top 10. Karis LeVert, he's been very integral to not just helping the Cavs float some of the bench lineups, but he helps them play with pace. When you look at how he's injected them with just a stable presence in transition as a ball handler, you already made the case for Tim Hardaway Jr. Jordan Clarkson, I think, has improved a lot as a passer. Just the efficiency isn't there. And then I don't know what to do with the Heat, because it's like Jaime Jaquez or Duncan Robinson might not qualify for this award, like depending on how this season closes out. But I just wanted to shout them out because those are guys that do qualify when you look at how much they've come off the bench this year so far. And they've both just been really good.
Yeah, I would echo basically everyone you have there. Clarkson and LeVert were kind of my next two. Those are pretty classic 6-man guys. Just to get the names out there so we can cover some bases. I think TJ McConnell, second most assists among reserves, and just the way that he, like, a lot of the on-off numbers don't love him. Part of that's because Halliburton is so good that it like juices the net rating in a way that doesn't help McConnell, but he plays with such pace. Like, he's so good at those like weird little 8-foot shots, and he does like the Nash dribble under the bat. Like, he brings a lot to the Pacers. He like really fits how they play. Like, he kind of plays this way anyway, but the 100 miles an hour thing works for Indiana. Trying to think who else. You said LeVert.
Al Horford probably belongs here too.
Horford should be in there. Walker Kessler, it's weird that he's coming off the bench, but he's got like twice as many blocks among bench players as the second highest guy. Like, a disappointing year for him, but maybe a mention. The minutes are so low. Well, I'm going to talk about this guy later too. Jonathan Isaac has been so goddamn good in like no playing time at all. I just want his name on there. One of the best defenders like in the league, full stop, when he's on the floor. So just to get a different type of guy out there, let's do that. That's as far as I think we need to go. I'm sure we'll offend somebody by not mentioning them, but that's pretty thorough.
Yeah, and like these weren't, again, after our top 5, basically they're not rankings, and so I was just including the names so that the list wasn't too long next to each other in grants. But that's I do expect, for what it's worth, I do expect Malik Monk to win the award.
If I had to bet, yeah, I think that's probably right. If I did have to bet on it, he would be the betting favorite, and in fact, he is. So that checks out.
Yeah. So you want to lead us into Defensive Player of the Year?
Okay. Let's go to. Let me pull that up here. I mean, it feels like a cop-out, but I just don't think that's the right way to think about it. He's the most important defensive player on a team whose defense is like, I mean, the distance last I checked between the Timberwolves and the second best defense was about the same as the difference between second and like 8th or 9th. So Rudy Gobert is one for me. There are a lot of other good defensive players on the Timberwolves. At least one of them, I think, will probably mention in all defensive teams, but he's going to make one of mine. So I just like, if you have another guy up there, I would love to hear the case, because Gobert is just like elite rim defense. He's doing better guarding in space, and he's just the most important guy on the best defense in the league, and it's the best defense by a mile. So that's the sort of nutshell case for him.
Do you know what's interesting though? So Rudy Gobert is my Defensive Player of the Year, and it's really not that close, I would say. Do you know what's interesting to me is like how much the defensive metrics just don't seem to love him this year. And I do wonder how much of that is just like, when you look at some of the counting stats that we know a lot of these other metrics, or a lot of these catch-all or kitchen sink metrics sort of value. It's okay, well, you've seen his defensive rebounding rate dip just a little bit, but then I look and it's like, all right, his steal rate's down, but his block rate is up. So I just don't understand why some of these metrics like don't love him, like the defensive ones, even, which we recognize are imperfect. I will say what he's been just absolutely crazy with. So opponents are shooting 14.4 points worse at the rim than expected against him. That's per B-ball index. That is the second highest among any player who has logged 1,000 minutes. And I think you could probably even lower the threshold and he'd still be second, but I just used 1,000. Only Walker Kessler is in front of him, to your point about Walker Kessler maybe needing some 6-man of the year love. That is just, when you look at how many shots he's contesting, that's pretty bonkers. And I think what's bigger for me is look at the way he's moving this year. Like, and I know part of it is he has guys on the perimeter in Jaden McDaniels, Gilgeous-Alexander, Walker, even Anthony Edwards, that he never really had in Utah. But just like, he is able to move in space. And there are still questions about how this dual big setup will sustain in the playoffs. But I'm worried about their offense. I not that I have no notes about their defense, but like I don't have any issue. I don't care who he's going up against, whether it's the Clippers, whether it's the Nuggets, whatever team. Like I think the Wolves' defense is going to sustain, and Rudy Gobert is just the driving force behind why. And I can't say enough. It's not just, I think a lot of it in years past has been built around his rim protection. I think this is the most, what would it be, comprehensive or versatile defensive player of the year case that he's ever had.
I think that's fair. I mean, like it does the, like, I take your point and I mentioned it in my write up and I think I said it, but his what appears to be a bizarre, like, you know, kind of late career improvement in an area that you wouldn't expect a big guy to get better at, which is moving in space, is a big deal. It's still like the deterrent effect is just so real. Like, you know, opponents take about 6% fewer shots at the rim when he's in the game. That's an elite figure. He's allowing about 48% conversion rate inside 6 feet when he's the primary defender. That's the best of anybody that is a high volume rim defender. So like, that's all just, that's where it starts. And then the fact that it now branches out to like beyond, you know, the charge circle, say, is like just such a huge deal. I am fascinated who your number 2 is.
Would you like to know? I could tell you who I took out of so my 2, 3, 4, 5 is just what I agonize over because that's the spots we're ranking, even though the ballot only goes 3 deep for this. I will say he is no longer number 2. I did have him there. I ultimately flipped, and maybe I'll come back. I had Derek White number 2 at first, but I ultimately think he's the type of guy, you know, where we talked about Giannis as sort of the rover. It's like, well, what if you took someone who could be this rover and this play ender when he's defending the second best player or the third best player on the other team, but also if you want him to go check the best player on the other team, yeah, he'll do that. The reason he doesn't on a lot of, I don't want to say nights, but in primary lineups, because Drew Holiday exists. And I ultimately didn't know how to weight that. And so I ended up nudging 2 more players in front of him. And I'm curious what you think about this. I have at number 2, Bam Adebayo.
Okay.
And at number, why am I like, do we not have a number 1? Well, look at that. I screwed up I didn't have a salt scrub. So I Bam Adebayo at number 2. And I have Victor Wembanyama at number 3.
Okay.
Do you want to go, like, all right, is there any overlap here that
Wemby is 2 for me?
Okay. I feel a lot better now.
Yeah, I think
here's the one thing I just want to note, because people are before, and I'll let you lead the case. People are going to say, those Spurs are like a bottom 5 defensive team. The Spurs are in the 68th percentile of defensive efficiency with Wemby on the court. So it's not just the highlights you're seeing. The fact that he's leading that team to that type of, like, I know they have some guys in Devin Vassell and Jeremy Sohan, and like they have guys who can. Wemby is making the Spurs a borderline elite defensive team, despite not having the personnel to do so.
This guy, so estimated plus minus kind of corrects for some of that stuff, right? Like that's the idea behind it, is it accounts for like who's out on the floor with you and against you. Wemby is a 98th percentile defensive estimated plus minus guy. That's good. It's hard to be a lot higher than that. He's about to be the 4th player in the last 20 years to average 3 blocks and a steal. And then like, forget the stats, just like watch, you know, that we're recording this Friday, Chet Holmgren, you know, create space on a step back around the elbow and Wemby just inhales it. Like we've never seen a guy shrink the floor, is the term that everybody talks about, but like affect shooters everywhere. Like, and that's like in terms of field goal percentage and just making it so they're like, if Chet Holmgren can't hit a step back with space over Wembanyama, like, guess what? No one should ever even try to shoot that shot. So like, we're at a point now where Wembanyama's deterrent ability is like, has the potential and might already be, honestly, like the greatest we've ever seen, like just in terms of guys not trying stuff because there's no hope. So I don't know what the metric's going to be for that. At some point, someone much smarter than me will figure out like how to measure the shots not taken because Wembanyama is on the floor. You know, and you can look at like, oh, rim attempt frequency and whatever, but like just as an individual presence, like I just don't think there's anybody, even Gobert. I don't think Gobert affects plays in a variety of ways like Wembanyama can. So, and this is just the beginning. Like we're going to gush over him when we talk about all rookie and all these other categories. So like, I couldn't get Wembanyama to first, you know, to win defensive player of the year. I don't think there's a momentum for that yet. But like, if he doesn't win the next 3 to 5 of these in a row, like I'm going to be pretty surprised. Like that's where I'm at now.
The other thing that impresses me about him too is like it's not just the shot deterrence or contest, but like he's also playing the pass or
Yeah.
other players that like he can defend it like every single player that's involved in an action at once. And so like you're watching him if you see him going up against pick and rolls or handoffs, like he's defending, like he's accounting for everyone at the same time, no matter where he is on the floor. And I think that's what kind of swung it for me to put him this high as well, is that okay, it's not just founded around his rim protection or even like shot deterrence. It's the fact that he can account for everything. And yeah, part of that's just his physical tools. One, I mean, that's part of everyone's case is their physical. Like that's why big men dominate DPOY in the first place, is because they're so huge. And then just the other thing is like, no, that's a pretty fucking wild IQ to have as a rookie. Now, I don't know how to weight that against like, well, there are other players with IQs, but like he already has like a defensive player of the year IQ.
Yeah.
And I have Bam Adebayo ahead of him and at number 2 ultimately, because Bam Adebayo I think has improved his sort of, I'll call it like traditional rim protection a lot. That's never been his strong suit. His strong suit is you want him to defend in isolation. Do you need him to switch? Do you need him to play zone? He can, I think he's probably the most, I mean, maybe this isn't true like Wemby now exists, but he can wear more hats defensively than perhaps anyone in the league except for Wemby at this point. And that's a really big deal. Miami is top 10 in defensive rating, and they can be locked down when Bam is on the court. And I'm kind of, not that I'm shocked, but it makes me wonder like, okay, if Rudy Gobert is playing like this, Wemby's waiting in the wanes or right there already, and we have Chet Holmgren to account for, it feels like the defensive player of the year might never happen for Bam Adebayo. And we could look back on it and say, he's not going to be the same level of iconic player, but the fact that Tim Duncan kind of never won a defensive player of the year award feels egregious, just given how good Bam is on defense, especially when you look at, I know this isn't part of it, but like we value what happens in the playoffs and we're supposed to scale it forward here. And the fact that like it still just doesn't move, not that it doesn't move the needle for him, but it hasn't pushed him over the top. I just wonder if we'll look back, should he not win a defensive player of the year, and be like, oh, that feels like a mistake.
Yeah, I think Bam not ever being like a number one option offensively and also not being likely to win defensive player of the year is going to make him go down as one of the like most easily forgotten, really great players of this era. Because like a lot of what makes him great is kind of subtle. Like, you know, there's not a lot of casual fans that are like, God, he's so good on switches. Remember that time he shut down Tyrese Halliburton for like a whole fourth quarter? Like that's just an under the radar thing. Bam is 4 for me. I had Anthony Davis at 3rd on my ballot. Just
man, he is 6th on mine, and I just, God, please go ahead. I agonize over that.
Well, there's from here down. It's like you could swap, 15 different players. I think Davis is just, he remains like such an imposing. That's the word that comes to mind to me. Force inside, great defensive rebounder, shot blocker. Still, super long, affects shots like in the upper paint, in the pick and roll, he can drop deeper than most guys can and still quickly recover to, turn bad shots into terrible shots if guys try to take up that space and shoot floaters or whatever. He affects every driver that is in the, vicinity of the basket. And still, like, I know Bam is better at this, but you're not hunting Davis on a switch ever, right? Like you're not trying to get him out onto, the number of times that he's just stymied Steph Curry, like trying to beat him on, an isolation play. Go back to the postseason earlier this year, several times. Like Davis is still not someone you want any part of in an isolation set, and he's an awesome rim protector. So like, I just love him there. Bam is 4 for me, and then we can just start doing the participation trophy thing because there's a million guys after that.
So yeah, I have Derek White 4, and I'll just say, this is someone who's under 6'5" and has a 3% block rate, which is just the fact that he's able to disrupt plays from anywhere, whether he's on the ball, off the ball, is incredible to me. And he has the ability to take on a tougher individual workload. The Celtics just kind of aren't built, and I guess I'm penalizing him for it a little bit. And I tend to be higher on what perimeter defenders do than a lot of others. I picked Mikal Bridges, was it 2 years ago, as my defensive player of the year? Because I had Evan Mobley last year, so maybe the year before. And I recognize that guys at the rim have a better chance of maybe impacting the game. Derek White can impact the game at the rim. I don't like, he'll impact it in transition. He'll impact it in isolation. Watching him is a joy. Number 5. So the only guy I had ahead of Anthony Day, other guy, Jalen Suggs. Monster I did not check. He will. Is he? He's not going to miss the games threshold, right?
I don't have him in my missing it.
No, no, yeah, 55 games. Yeah, I just want to make sure. I was like, I don't think he's been injured this year, but I'm always a little bit worried. He is just like, good luck trying to like do anything with Jalen Suggs on the court. It's you're not going to get by him. You can't screen him. You can't throw an entry pass. You can't throw a cross court pass. You can't even like run a dribble. Like Jalen Suggs is just like everywhere all at once. It feels like he's like a magnet to the ball without like taking these wild gambles to me. And so he has a case, honestly. Like, I think if anyone picked any of these 5 to win defensive players, and I'll even say 6 just because of what Davis does. And I will say the on-off splits are not in favor of Davis. You just have to look at the personnel other than LeBron he's played a lot with in some of those offense first lineups, even just like the lineups in general. The Lakers aren't built to defend outside of Anthony Davis. And I almost feel bad not having him higher because he's 2,000 plus minutes this year. Like, he has been available and played through stuff. So he's been great, but I think like that's just, I think I'm probably like pretty bullish on this being my top 6, but we can get to like the, if you want to go through your list of others that you had.
I wonder if maybe we shouldn't, because we're just going to give our all defensive teams away, because I'm just going to go down my list. I mean, I can leave it at my top 3, and then like I can give you a couple more if you want to just have these spreadsheets filled out. But I wonder if maybe we should wait so we don't just step on the all defensive discussion, or do we even care about that? Maybe we just highlight these guys now. What do you think?
I think at this point it's just like maybe that will streamline the all defensive discussion a bit.
Okay. All right, so like Suggs, like I agonized over Suggs because I don't know what to do with him versus White versus Caruso versus Chris Dunn in a lower minute role versus even like Dennis Smith Jr. Like, there's like a half dozen really awesome point of attack, like smallish guards, and White is bigger than that, but like in that bucket. So I think I'll probably go. Who are you putting for me there? Because I haven't even.
I was just going to list all the names you said before I forgot them.
Yeah, go for it. So yeah. Also, if we're just going to talk about like guys that I had really high up, so I have Caruso on my first team. I'll just say that, and I have Jaden McDaniels also up there. We haven't mentioned him yet.
Yeah, I mean, Jaden McDaniels certainly has a case. I don't know that I feel like he was better last year, but the level of difficulty he shouldered this season speak for itself. You said Dennis Smith Jr. That's like a deep cut.
That's a deep cut. That's not, I wouldn't have him on like my top 10. Like, I don't think I even have him on an all defensive team, but I just like talking about all those guards that are like,
I was thinking about Chris Dunn too, and was just ultimately wondering, like, does he have the volume, like the playing time necessary to usurp? Because that's the issue that I kind of run into with, and I know this year, like, he's started a ton of games, but I still run into that issue a little bit with Alex Caruso. I guess he's at 27.2 minutes per game, so that makes it a little bit easier. But like, he's always been just sort of, is he going to play 1,500 minutes this season? And the answer predominantly is no, except for last year. So he's someone I've always struggled with.
Bam is on mine also. I don't know. I'd probably put him after Davis, but you don't need to mess too much with that. I think that's good. There's a few names that are high up on my list, but we can talk about those for all defensive.
I will say, so I had some other names that you didn't mention, and so I'll throw those there. I will just put Jaden McDaniels here because he factored in. I did have I thought about Chris Dunn, Alex Caruso factored in. These aren't rankings at this point. I'm just throwing them in the spreadsheet. Quietly, the Grizzlies have a top 10 defense, despite just being blown up by injuries. Jaren Jackson Jr. still belongs in this discussion for me. And I wonder if he would factor in more heavily if the Grizzlies were more relevant. And I'm even like throwing myself in there. Am I kind of being too unfair with just like the injuries that they've had? I also think, like I mentioned, a lot of peaks and plunges, but like Lou Dort belongs in this. Herb Jones is another guy. Like, he's going to factor into the all defense discussions. Look, people might not want to say Chet Holmgren. Like, he's not really near Wemby as a defender, but he absolutely is a high level defender already as a rookie, which is just, I know some people don't love this, but like, I'm so excited to just watch Chet and Wemby go at each other for the next 10 years.
It's going to be great. Can I give you a couple that you haven't mentioned? I have
2 more.
Okay.
I just have 2 more names.
Better than Jared Allen.
So I actually have 3 more names. There was Jared Allen, and he didn't factor in, but I just wanted to like the defense player, but like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is here too. And who was the last guy I had? Now I have to scroll over to the other sheet. And I had Dylan Brooks, high fiver. Dylan Brooks.
high fiber. Aaron Gordon is someone that's going to make an all defensive team for me.
Oh,
Asar Thompson warrants a mention, I think. And let's see, that's probably thorough enough between our two yellow lists there.
yeah. I'm trying to think if there's like anyone egregious that we would have
Giannis, you could.
forgotten.
I mean, we're way down the ballot. You could probably throw Giannis up there.
Yeah, is he gonna make an all defensive team for you? I can't wait to see that. That's I'm gonna spoil it right now and say no, he's not on one of my.
Depends on if
Oh,
we make up a third team.
so do you know who's another name I have here? And I don't think he belongs in the defense player of the year discussion, but I think you'll be happy that I have Jalen Williams,
Sure.
like wing Jalen Williams, just been an absolute monster this year. So look, we named like that's a lot of players. I think I feel pretty good insofar as I can feel good about anything, about like my top end guys. I still didn't know. I think the Wemby stuff is going to receive a lot of pushback, not from us necessarily, or people to us, or people who listen to this podcast, but I think a lot of people think it's going to be a prisoner of the moment thing, and it's not.
Yeah. Can I give you some of the by the way, the sub 65 guys that are not gonna, that would be considered if not for the
Embiid.
rule?
Yeah.
Embiid one, Isaac, Evan Mobley, Draymond Green, OG Anunoby, Porzingis, Nick Claxton. Like the guys that aren't going to qualify are
is
so
KP
good.
Not eligible?
I don't think I think he technically is right now, but I think last I counted he could miss like 2 more games.
Yeah, it was 2 games. So
I'm assuming that. And Dennis Smith Jr. actually I have is going to fall short of that too. So he's the sub 65er.
OG, that was the other thing. When I was looking, I was like, wow, he was good in Toronto, but kind of turned on the Jets.
Yeah.
When he went to New York, it seemed like if he would have made not the defensive player of the year discussion. I think all defense was hard enough. He would have made it a lot harder if he qualified.
I don't know how you keep him off a team if he had played enough at the level that he was showing with the Knicks. Like it's because it's just sort of understood that he's, he was always the guy you'd point to as there's no matchup that he's not suited for, but he just isn't going to get the game.
So for your 17th player on your ballot, who do you want? You just said OG, Kristaps, Isaac. We have Giannis there. Who's the other player you think needs to be?
Oh my God, I haven't even got to my snubs either. This is stupid. We have to stop. We could talk.
Just give me one more name so that we're even.
Oh,
we went 17 deep.
Well, put Jaren Jackson on mine too because he has to be there, just as a mention.
So there we go. We talked about 17 players. I don't know who we excluded possibly.
17 more probably that we should talk about.
Yeah, and like the other thing too is just there's only 10 all defense spots, by the way, guys. Like this is, you could say we spoiled the discussion a little bit, but these weren't rankings after the top 3. So it gets interesting. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not looking forward to this next discussion.
The rookie of the year?
I want to look forward to it, but I feel like any way we frame it, it's gonna be deemed so unbelievably toxic.
Why?
Not by our religious listeners, but I feel like it's going to be controversial. But take us through your rookie of the year pick and logic.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, I had Chet as rookie of the year probably like a month ago. And in hindsight, it might have been wrong then. But I think Wembanyama has hit another level of late. So it's Wembanyama, like, and I feel great about that. And that's not just like, it's sort of just like, well, yeah, among humans, Chet is the rookie of the year, but like there's this extra class now that we have to talk about because Wembanyama is just different. So Wembanyama, I think, is a more impactful defender. He's not as efficient of a scorer. We all know that. Chet is like, 18, 8, 3, 3, and 1, and he's making threes, and like that's awesome. His role is different. He's not asked to do the things that Wembanyama is asked to do. And I think I just still have this sense that Wembanyama is like just sort of like still figuring things out and is just leveling up like by the week almost. And Holmgren, is in almost any other year, we would just be over the moon about Holmgren. So Holmgren's 2, obviously. And then after that, I sort of don't care where we go because it's just clearly those 2 guys, but it's also clearly Wembanyama at the top for me.
So I think it's fair to what you said. And my prediction is Wemby's going to win rookie of the year. It's like a minus 900, I think, at most sports books. And I do believe that when we do this exercise in a month or whatever it is, he will be my pick. Chet Holmgren is my pick right now because I think this is a full season award. And I will get, so in Wemby's defense, though, very quickly, he has Chet beat in LeBron. and he's closing in on him in other metrics. Like Chet Holmgren ranks 21st in EPM. Victor Wembanyama is 26th. Chet Holmgren ranks 20th in value over replacement player. Wemby's 29th. And so this is even when you go to the season long things, and Wemby has Chet beat in defense of LeBron for people who cares. So when you get to the catch-all metrics, if that's what you like to go by, no, it's already a discussion. So I don't think it's by a hair. Now, what's really, there are a few factors that kind of shifted it to Chet for now for me. And I'm just recognizing that if Wemby keeps this up, he will be my rookie of the year. But like, this is a full season award. And so you get into just like the efficiency. And the other thing that matters, by the way, I know some people like to look at games played, but like Chet has Wemby beat in minutes by like 250 or something like that. Like, that's not super insubstantial. Their games played are, of course, going to be a lot, similar, 59 to 54. So it's not a huge difference, but to have him beat by 200 plus minutes when you've also been so much more efficient than him. I mean, his true shooting percentage, I don't care what you think about their roles, 64.3 to Wemby being up to 56.3. Mm-hmm. That's a really big difference. And like, he has been comparably effective defensively. And even when you start to dig into the scoring stuff, Victor Wembanyama now, like even since they moved Victor Wembanyama to center, and if you go back and look at just from February, but like on the season, Chet has more unassisted buckets than Victor Wembanyama. Like a higher percentage of his made buckets are coming without an assist than Victor Wembanyama. I think that's interesting because he's kind of viewed as like he stretches the floor, he'll screen, or he'll just attack in open space off the catch and, maybe get one of those other, like, the delayed assists, I'll call them. So I have Chet right now, but the way that Wemby has been playing is just, and this is something I wanted to get into, was I saw, and I think this is the spot to do it. I saw it floating around, and this is without getting into rookie of the year. Wemby specifically, there was a question floating around on Twitter, when or if, when will Wemby be the best player in the NBA, or can Victor Wembanyama be the best player in the NBA? And like the when stuff, it was kind of memed where it's like, what do you mean when, as in like future tense? But there was a level of pushback that surprised me, where a lot of people seem to truly believe that aside from just, the frame concerns or whatever, that's just like, he's skinny, but he's put so much work into his body. They just don't think he's ever going to be the level of offensive player necessary to be the best player in the league. And I'm curious as to what you think about, I think the question is, can Victor Wembanyama be the best player in the NBA at some point? How quickly do you think it would happen? What could prevent him from doing it? Just what do you make of that entire sector of debate?
I love this because I was unaware of this discussion. So hopefully I'm coming to it without being influenced. Can he be the best player in the league? Like, of course he can. That's ridiculous to say that he cannot. That's like, you're just wrong if you say he cannot. So I don't know, what are the odds that he has like an Embiid level of like injury frequency? I don't know what percentage you put that at. It's non-zero. It's real. Embiid has at times probably been regarded as the best player in the league anyway. So I don't know how long does Wemby need to hold that title? Does it need to be for a year? Like, I think like so all that aside, what you're really asking is like, so when the current like crop of the guys you consider that we talked about in MVP as the best player in the league are like aged out, is he going to be at the top of the group that is ascending now, or that is, on the younger side? Like, so that means he's got to be better in a couple years than Luka, SGA, like Giannis probably, or, I'm sure I'm forgetting guys, but just, going through the list of guys that are not going to, LeBron will be gone, Curry will be gone,
will they?
Durant, Kawhi, like all these guys are going to diminish to where you don't talk about them that way. You got to think about Tatum and Booker and like how much better might they get over the next couple of years. I don't know what the percentage chance is. Absolutely, Wembanyama can be the best player in the league. And I think if I had to guess, he could do it as soon as like his third year, maybe. I don't know if it would happen next year. That seems like wildly ambitious, but I wouldn't rule it out, right? Like if he is far and away the best defensive player in the world, which could, like, I would be surprised if that weren't the case next year, and he gets a little better offensively, then you're already talking about, well, he's like top 3 or 4 MVP. So, and that's in his second year. I mean, that's an optimistic outlook, but it's hard for me not to be optimistic about him. I just like, it's just, we don't really talk about this stuff that often, but like the makeup and his approach and like his maturity and all that stuff, like you're not going to have, I have no concerns about him not having like the right, off the floor stuff. I don't have any of those worries. So yeah, I don't know what exactly like the debate really drills down to, but like, yeah, he can be the best player. I would be surprised if he weren't in the conversation as soon as his third year.
That is, when did LeBron enter that discussion, do you think? Was he
question.
there by year? Because I mean, he was kind of, Kobe was still there at that time, or at least people had him in that tier of player. LeBron was certainly the best player in the league by his 5th season. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think that's right.
When was his first season as the best player in the NBA? Because his first MVP came when? Was that 2000? And he won MVP first he finished in the top 10 of MVP voting during his rookie season, by the way. He didn't win his first MVP award until 2009. So that was his 6th season. He was top 5. He finished second in 2006. So at age 21, I think he had a case to be the best player in the NBA. Feels fair, because he certainly wasn't there as a sophomore.
No. And I think next year is when we're going to have to start like really, really having I can't get there in the second year, but I think the third year feels like the magic number to me. If it's going to happen, we'll have a really good idea by then, I think.
But what I also wanted to say here is people are undervaluing his offense, because I think of what you look at the numbers now and they're still a little unimpressive. But like, he is above league average true shooting. He might even be there now, but he's above league average true shooting since the Spurs moved him to center. This is staggering to me. Since they made him their starting 5, he is shooting 45% on pull-up 3-pointers. And he has made more pull-up 3-pointers during this stretch than D'Angelo Russell, just as a name. He's made more pull-up 3-pointers during this stretch than Kawhi Leonard. Like, that's legit. And he's taking some tough shots. The freedom to explore absolutely matters. But by the way, and this shift has been, I feel like it's been starker of late, but like the Spurs are running stuff through him as a facilitator. And so among bigs who averaged at least 25 minutes per game during the month of February, do you want to guess? Do you want to guess how many had a higher assist rate than Victor Wembanyama?
I mean, you'd have like Jokic. It would be, I'd
That's
feel confident.
How many can you, how many can you guess? So there's Jokic. There's
like Bam.
No.
So, okay. So I'm already blown away that it's like, he's got a higher assist rate than Bam. I don't know who, like, just what is he? Is he top 5?
He's top 5. So Bam probably doesn't make the cut here because I filtered it for 6'10" and over. So like, he has a higher assist rate than Alperen Şengün, than Kevin Durant, than Nurkic. So it's Jokic, Giannis, Domas, and Paolo Banchero, the only bigs who averaged at least 25 minutes a game in the month of February with a higher assist rate. And so, yeah, Wemby's turnover rate can be a little bit higher, but like, you know what? 14% during that stretch, given what they're trying to run through him, there's an offensive ceiling here that I really just don't think people are accounting for. And even so, they run a lot more stuff through him at the elbows. And so just among players, and this is, by the way, I'm not even breaking down a segment. This is for the entire season. Among everyone who is averaging as many elbow touches per game as Wemby, there's only 4 total players, including Wemby, that have an assist rate from the elbow of at least 20 with a turnover rate below 5. It's Şengün, it's Jokic, and it's Poeltl, and then there's Wemby. And so this is all just, yes, some of it's cherry picked, but like an assist rate of 20 plus with a turnover rate below 5, like that fucking matters, especially when you're getting some actual volume at the elbows. Now, I will say he's getting fewer elbow touches per game on the season than Şengün, Poeltl, Jokic, but like I'm talking about on the season now, Grant. This isn't, just since when he was moved to the 5, or this isn't just since February. Like this is the entire season. So there's another, and when you're even talking about him in the context of versus Chet Holmgren, that might actually be what separates him from Chet Holmgren, is more than anything, is the fact that he can, and again, I don't know how much of this is the freedom to explore, the license to explore, but like he can create his own shots And he's also setting teammates up in more complicated ways or as the hub, whereas Chet does not. Now, is that a function of Chet's role or a lack of ability? I think it's probably a combination of both. They're never going to need him to do that in Oklahoma City when you look at how they're built. But it's also why, I'm sure you saw the rumors that the Spurs are ready to make a run at Trae Young over the summer. And part of me is like, if you have Wemby on defense and Trae's just there and he's going to give the level of effort that he has the past year and a half or whatever, that'll work. And I'm also kind of like, that will dilute what Wemby's doing on offense. And I don't need to see that because I really do think, and it's even, you could throw this out the window and just say, like, there's a chance that he becomes Giannis was the best player in the NBA at some point without having the deepest offensive armory. I'm not getting into he has no bag, but he's been the primary initiator, but it's never in ways like he needs to get going downhill, where it's Wemby can do that in other ways. I'm not saying he's better than Giannis right now. I'm just saying if someone like Giannis can get to be the best player in the world for multiple seasons at a time, while being more of just like this force of nature on offense and then the best defensive player in the league, Victor Wembanyama can absolutely do the same thing, especially if he's going to be tasked with doing, I don't want to say more complicated stuff, but just more, like have a more comprehensive offensive package. And I think the people who believe, even if they think Wemby can be the best player and they don't think it can happen on the same timeline that it did for LeBron, just because Giannis's role, it took him a while to get there. Same with Jokic, because one, I think with both those guys, the national public just took too long to catch up to them. But the other thing was they were brought along more gradually, where there's been layers to Victor Wembanyama's role and usage this year, but it's been very much overall baptism by fire when you look at the entire package. If you want to, like, this is someone who could be the best player in the NBA by, I'm not going to predict it next year, but kind of like when LeBron entered the discussion, year 3 and year 4, he could be better than Luka. He could be better than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at that point. And I think that it just, people just look at him as like, well, it's because of what he's doing on defense. It's no, there's a superstar offensive player here. And this isn't Anthony Davis level play finishing either. Like, Davis has never really expanded his game beyond the confines of being a play finisher. And when he does, with the exception of the bubble, it doesn't always go well. Like, we're already seeing Wemby do a lot of stuff when you look at it as a facilitator that Anthony Davis has never really been tasked with doing. At least that's anecdotal. I didn't dig into the numbers and look at AD in New Orleans.
Think about, though, what we've just discussed, right? Like what you said, the names we've thrown out, like, well, it's Şengün, Giannis, Davis. Like, you could throw whatever else. But the thing is, you're saying, yeah, he'd be like those guys who are super different, except could do more. Like, this is why comparisons fail with him, because there's no such thing as a guy who can be the best elbow facilitator in the league, the best rim protector in the league, the best off-ball defender in the league, the best pull-up shooting big in the league. Like, that guy does not exist. So it's like, I think the fact that we have to invoke so many different players that are great at certain things but have real weaknesses and still come up saying, like, yeah, he's kind of like them, except, like, doesn't have the flaw. Like, that might be the best possible argument for, like, of course this guy's going to be the best player in the league if he doesn't get hurt. Like, maybe we should just forget the injury thing. Like, who cares? Like, of course, yeah, everyone could be great if they didn't get hurt. But, like, you can't find a guy that you're like, he's just like this guy. And that's been true, like, from day one, really, in terms of his potential. Is like, yeah, he might be as good as Anthony Davis at everything Anthony Davis is good at, except also he's a better pull-up shooter and he's better off the, like, there's no guy out there you can point to that is like a good approximation for him. And I think that's probably the best endorsement you can give him.
Yeah, just like that entire package. Now, I am curious on one thing that I found a little interesting with where you're going when it comes to the rookie of the year. I'm getting back to the rookie of the year discussion very quickly. Last year, you ended up picking Jalen Williams over Paolo Banchero. And it feels like there's the inverse of J-Dub came on later than Paolo Banchero did. And this is the inverse where Wemby's doing the same thing. So you have, like, consistency there, but, like, you valued J-Dub's efficiency a ton.
Yep.
And I'm just wondering, what's the difference when it comes to Chet? Is it just because the defensive gap is, like, you believe it's that massive? I'm not even quite, I'm just very curious how you approach that.
Before we got on our when's Wemby going to be the best player thing, I was going to say, like, my logic is is inconsistent because I based my Jalen Williams pick last year on like, well, he's just so much more efficient, and Banchero has like one way to be great, and he's not efficient as a scorer, and blah blah blah. Like, so it seems like I flipped that because I'm like, oh, Chet's more efficient, but his job's easier because he got better. It's like that's the argument you would have made, the other way last year. It's the defense, and it's just like the degree again. It's comparing Williams and Banchero is like, yeah, they're kind of like similar, they've got their differences, and it's just like Wembanyama is just, I think he's just on a different level. Like he's a tier up. Like he's not comparable to other players, let alone other rookies. Like Chet is great. I love Chet. I think he's going to be phenomenal. Like he's going to make 10 All-Star games, whatever, like however ridiculous you want to get.
Why didn't you say he's going to make 11, Grant?
Yeah, I just think Wemby is different. So it is if you want to pin me down, it's like, yeah, the defense is a pretty big differentiator for that argument. And I think I just can't be too hyperbolic about Wembanyama. So yeah, you are right though. Like my logic for picking J-Dub over Banchero last year should be flipped in this case, but
I do think so. Wemby really started to shift earlier than J-Dub, like made that kind of leap. And so I would understand it like from that. And like the race has been close. I think the race has been closer for longer than it was with Paolo and J-Dub. I also just don't think it was that particularly that close last year. But when you're looking at role difficulty, that, by the way, this is me being inconsistent, but I'm already saying that Wemby is going to win, and I think he'll be my pick by the end of the year. But to date, taking the whole season into account, I roll with Chet. So we both have the same third because we already said it. So do you want to reveal?
Do we have the same third? I was just going to ask you who your third is.
All right, I have Brandon Miller. Who do you have?
I think it has to be Miller. I thought about two other guys, but I mean, Miller's kind of harder to evaluate than maybe these other couple guys. But maybe there's three others. But I think Miller has shown a ceiling. The knock was, he's going to be a good role player. I don't see first option, whatever. I still am not sure that's possible for him, but we saw some signs that like it's a little more likely than most suspected that Miller might be, an all-star level guy that can be your first option for chunks of games or maybe seasons. So I think it probably has to be Miller. Really disappointed that Scoot is not going to factor into this discussion like at any point, considering we were both over the moon about him.
There's still time, but like as of now, Scoot doesn't even belong on an all rookie team.
No, not close.
So I would say the thing that's impressed me most about Brandon Miller is we've seen some of his efficiency from the perimeter, like hold or actually be good. He's shooting like 38% on threes as we record this, despite the LaMelo Ball injury. He's definitely been overtasked with some facilitation, but getting that information out and what he can do, I think he's done a better job of creating his shot and getting separation than I assumed he was going to do at this level. And I've just been really impressed with the defense as a rookie. Like, no, he's not in the all defense discussion like Holmgren and Wemby are. But like to someone positionally who you can put on some really tough covers and he will make them work to get the ball or prevent them from taking shots. That's really impressed me. And so they have found, I think Mark Williams is really good. He's been injured, obviously, for much of this season. But like they found their second building block. I think it's always a little bit iffy when we're talking about like bigs and building blocks when they're a niche archetype big like a Williams or a Jalen Duren.
Yeah.
But like Brandon Miller to me is just like, oh, you have LaMelo and you have Brandon Miller, and like that's a real baseline off which to direct your entire franchise.
Yep, agree. So, and I don't know how much you care about the order, but the guys we really have to mention here: Brandon Pajemski, Jaime Jaquez, Derek Lively are kind of my next three. I don't know.
Hey, those are my next three too, and I'll include them in a massive dump of other names that just like were here.
Yeah.
Me. But it's funny that you mentioned the same three. I was relieved to find out, and maybe we should have mentioned this, that the 65 game minimum doesn't apply to all rookie or rookie of the year because Derek Lively would not hit it and he absolutely belongs.
Yeah. So I have the next three names you have as well. The other guys I would throw on there, Keontae George, Amen Thompson. And I think that's the only ones you don't have up there that I have on my my short list.
Yeah, Amen Thompson's looked a lot better. And again, because the game's minimum doesn't work, but I think you get to a point where it's like when you're looking at the total minutes played and where he ranks there right now, it's just tough for me to be like, I'll be curious to see what your all rookie teams look like is what I'll say.
I think you've got a pretty good look at them right now.
Terrible podcasting. So where do you want to go next? Do you want to start with you just want to segue right into all rookie?
Yeah, let's do all rookie since we're kind of on the topic.
I'm going to switch our windows now for anyone who's watching. I have so many tabs open. It's an unhealthy amount.
It's scary.
So, do you like my headings on what we have for the all league teams? Goodbye positions forever. Rookie was always like positionless though. So that there's at least that.
All right. There's no mystery about what like our first four of our All NBA first team. It's Wemby, Chet, I think Pajemski, and I think Brandon Miller's on there.
Yeah. So, you're talking about our first three for this?
No, I think our first four. Well, yeah, our first three are there for sure. But I think Pods is probably an all rookie first teamer at this point.
I would agree with you. I actually think we didn't get into this, and maybe now's a good time to get into this. He's been more valuable than Jaime Jaquez to me.
Yeah.
And I'm also prepared to entertain. I didn't put him here. I want to make it clear. I'm prepared to entertain that not only have Brandon Miller, Victor Wembanyama, Chet Holmgren been there, but Case and Wallace. I might take him over Jaime Jaquez right now. Just the lack of shooting and then the 3-point percentage for Jaquez, just like it rankles me in a weird way. So maybe I'm like kind of counting that too much against him. But I'm curious where you did you consider putting anybody? Could you consider putting Derek Lively above Jaquez? Did you get to any of those points?
I in fact do have Lively on my first team over Jaquez.
Oh, okay. There we go.
And now the no 65 game limit is a factor there, obviously, because I don't think Lively can hit it. But Lively to me showed like a signature, like a staying skill. Like he's gonna be a really good interior defensive player that can move and he can catch lobs. Like I understand what Derek Lively can be great at. Jaquez is kind of jack of all tradesy, which is not like a knock. It's just, I think I value that a little less than I know I'm going to get these couple awesome things from Lively. So Jaquez is a second teamer for me, like pretty easily. Cause I considered him for a first team, but yeah, I think I like Lively as a first teamer a little better.
I had Jaquez just over Lively in part because of when I first put it together, there was like the game's minimum of played, but there is a minutes differential there. And so that mattered to me in this one. And then also there's just more of, there's more positional versatility when it comes defensively to Jaquez than there is for Derek Lively, he's on my second team, just to be clear. He's been absolutely spectacular. And so I'm assuming you have Jaime Jaquez on your second team.
Correct.
Like that. So who do you have? I will say my next one, and I'm bullish on this. Again, I consider him for first team. I'm like all Case and Wallace, everything. Like as a plug and play guy who defends his ass off. And yeah, you'd like to see him be more aggressive with his own offense or as a passer, but they don't need him to do that right now. And he's just come in and been like, maybe they're like sixth because their best players have been Chet, J-Dub, throw Lou Dort in there, Shea, of course, but like Case and Wallace has been more valuable to them than Josh Giddey. That might be the best way to put that.
Yep. No, Wallace is a no-brainer. He's definitely on my second team. Thought about him for first as well. So this is where it gets difficult because there's like four guys that I feel like have to be there and we have three spots. So my definites are Asar Thompson. Again, the idea of like whatever else happens, I know he's going to be one of the best defensive players in the league for as long as he keeps his athleticism. Do you have, okay, good. You have him too.
Yeah. I'm just going to, if there's overlap, I'm going to include mine with yours.
I just don't know what to do here. So here are the choices, and maybe we can talk this out. Keontae George, Amen Thompson, and Bilal Coulibaly, and we can only keep two. And like I think you could just kick out Amen Thompson because of the like playing time stuff. But like, am I sure that he's not going to be better than maybe both of those guys? No. So do you have the same issues? Do you have those three guys, or is there someone I'm forgetting, or is it easier for you?
Shout out Grady Dick for making a very late season push. But do you know who's the other one that I really want to include? I just don't know. I don't know that I could pick him over any of these guys. He just does some nasty work defensively. Do you think you could guess?
I'm drawing a blank, but I'm sure I'll be bothered.
Tamani Kamara. The other name.
Yeah. Played a ton of minutes too, quietly.
Well, yeah, and like that's almost to a detriment at points when you look at what he's done on the offensive end this year. I will say, so I'll put him here. He would have made like if there was a third team as an honorable mention. I think so. You have Keontae George, Amen Thompson, and Bilal Coulibaly. I went with Bilal Coulibaly and Keontae George. And that was, I felt pretty good about that. And it was the minutes thing did it for me.
Okay.
But I also think when you kind of look at, I think the body of work with Bilal Coulibaly wire to wire, where he's been more valuable on offense despite not getting the usage he deserves, and then really just covering the opposing team's best player a lot of the time all season, then that minutes gap between him and Amen Thompson matters to me. And then Keontae George is being saddled with more playmaking, more initiation, more creation in general. That turned the tables. Again, maybe I'm waiting playing time too much, and who knows, maybe Amen Thompson just winds up bridging that gap because he ranks 16th in total minutes played among rookies. And so it's not outside the realm of possibility that he works himself into Case and Wallace territory, who I thought about for first team.
Yeah, I think Coulibaly is the easiest one for me to make sure is on there, and then I'll just go George too. But I think you have to go George because I'm pretty sure he's going to be at least good and maybe very good at a vital skill, which is he's going to be a good creator for himself and others with the ball. And Thompson's shooting limitations kind of just mean that he's definitely going to be good defensively and in transition. I just don't know if Thompson can be the kind of driver of offense that George I think is going to be able to be. So I think that's what we have to do there. I would put Kamara if I had a third team on there. And now we're kind of
Cam Whitmore belongs there. He just doesn't have the sample size yet for me.
You know who the advanced numbers love to a laughable degree because all he does is catch good passes and dunk it is Trace Jackson Davis.
Do you have him? That would be your honorable mention.
I'd put him in an honorable mention.
All right, I did not have him there.
He's he's 1, 2, 3, 5th among rookies in EPM, which is hilarious. He might not hit the games played either if that mattered, which it doesn't. But
I also had, because just the offense isn't there yet, but I also had Anthony Black for what he can do defensively. I don't even know. Did I have a 5th honorable mention on here? Let me go back to my doc. So I have the long list of Dwap Reef. Grady Dick has come on lately. There's also just Gigi Jackson. Yes. He's only at 500 plus minutes, so that's kind of tough, but that was someone else. Like I said, I've been impressed by Ben Shepherd's defense as a rookie. It's just now you're getting into sub 500 guys. And so I'm wondering at what point is it just the Scoot belong here by virtue of playing 1,200 minutes and that number is going to go up? I don't know how to, because he's had some really high level moments and hit some difficult shots and made some really gnarly passes.
I think that, how about frame it this way? There are only 2 guys, and that's Wemby and Chet, that I'm sure are going to be better players than Scoot in the end on this list. I still think we can't give up on the possibility that Scoot is better than everybody but those 2. But if we're just, we put him on here if we just want to be on the right side of history thing. It's hey, we didn't forget this guy who became an all-star point guard. I'm trying to think.
Cover our bases.
Marcus Sasser. We haven't talked about Marcus Sasser at all. Because the Pistons never play the right guys. But really good shooter. I don't know what else he's going to be able to do, but I want to throw him a mention there.
The other one that I'm convinced had he just been playing from day one would be here is Taylor Hendricks.
Oh man, you're never going to give up on that guy.
I don't think the Jazz have either, but I think he's just going to be really good. So I will say, it feels I don't know, what were there, probably 8 or 9 all rookie spots that were really easy. It really just, maybe it's 8 because it's the Bilal Coulibaly, Keontae George, Amen Thompson, Tamani Kamara stuff. And I'm just curious, how many minutes does Cam Whitmore end the season with? And is he just so ridiculously impactful that you have to put him on a second team anyway?
Yeah. Just throw Whitmore on there for me to finish it up, because I think that's another potential right side of history one. You want to at least make sure you got him.
You want to look back and be hey, we mentioned this guy.
Yeah.
Look, we said Grady Dick and Dwap Reef. I think that really safeguards us against people thinking that we don't care about
Gigi Jackson. Nobody knows who Gigi Jackson is outside of Memphis.
I feel because he had some just games that popped, but there's just Memphis. By the way, we didn't mention Taylor Jenkins and Coach of the Year. The fact that they still kind of play hard on the defensive end, he probably deserves some love for the body of work that he has done there. So shout out Taylor Jenkins.
Let's get our 12th coach on our Coach of the Year ballot.
Do you think it was 12th? It might have been 22nd coach.
Might have been more. Yeah, it might have been more. So we got to do all defense now.
God, I just hate all of this. I love it, but I hate it. You ever see that Tony Horton from P90X?
Oh yeah,
but
I love it.
That's what these awards are for me.
Tony Horton, by the way, still looks great, and he's like 65 or something.
He's
Super
65.
maybe 60 something. He's in his 60s.
Well, shout out to him. I want to look like that, but I guess that means I feel like, are we sure that is he a natty or not? Is the real question. So
I don't know. All right, I think we really did kind of step on a lot of all defensive in our DPOY. That's the last one, right? All defensive.
Well, we have all NBA too, if you care about that.
Oh shit,
that's a little bit like that. Well, let's just get all defense out of the way.
Okay. Easy first team for me. Well, no, easy first three guys on the first team because I've had them in my top three. Gobert, Wemby, AD are on my all defensive first team. Now I'm questioning, because hearing you talk about all defenses, questioning why I have these next two guys on there over some other players.
Just for streamlining sake, I'm not ranking these, but like Bam was second, but I'm putting him third on the first team. So I actually did rank my first team. All defense was easy, which is part of like the reason I went into it, was because like I ranked my top 5 or 6 so that I would know what it was. And so I ended up with Rudy Gobert, Victor Wembanyama, Bam Adebayo, Derek White, and Jalen Suggs on my first team. Anthony Davis, I'm just going to go ahead and say it, even though like he's on my first guy. That was the toughest. Like those 6, I really did labor over.
Okay. I'm so suggestible because I'm going to change the other 2 guys I had on my first team based on the argument. So I'm going to put Bam on my first team, and I'm going to put Derek White on my first team.
Okay. I mean, why does that make you inconsistent?
Because that's not who I have written down on the sheet I'm looking at when I decided who's on my first team.
Yeah, but no one needed to know that, Chris.
I think it's good to change your mind when you get confronted with good information. So kudos to you for making good arguments.
I clearly can't handle the frozen columns because I'm just putting all these weird people like in bizarre places. But so yeah, you have Rudy Gobert, Victor Wembanyama, Anthony Davis, Bam Adebayo, Derek. By the way, all defense rookies, like there's been, I think it was Tim Duncan, David Robinson, and like Hakeem are the only ones to have made that. I should look that up maybe while you're going through some of your others, but I don't think it's happened since Tim Duncan. And the fact that the Spurs and I'm not even talking, I don't even know if those were first team selections. So like I said, I'll look it up now, but the fact that the Spurs just have these rookies that are just probably making all defense team, that you've had 3 of them, that's ridiculous, right?
I don't know if anyone's ever made this argument or this observation, but it tends to go pretty well when the Spurs have the number 1 pick. Historically, they tend to find a generational superstar with pretty high success.
Okay, so
I think I need to put these next 2 guys because they were originally first teamers, but I'll put them on my second team along with.
Wow. So it just came up. Here's everyone who made an all defense team as a rookie. There's been 5, Grant. David Robinson.
Stat padding?
Yeah. David Robinson, Kareem, Tim Duncan, Hakeem, and Manute Bol.
Manute Bol. Yeah, that'd be one that would trip you up if you had to name the 5 with 3 strikes. I don't think you'd get Bol.
I only would have gotten 3 because I don't think I would have remembered that Kareem made it for sure. So I definitely would have only gotten 3.
Yeah. All right. So on my second team, I'm going to put Alex Caruso, Jaden McDaniels.
All right.
And since I bumped Bam and Derek White up, that leaves Chet is going to be on my second team.
Ooh.
And then I'm going to go with Herb Jones, like the length there.
And also, the Pelicans are elite on defense, and I would argue he is the primary reason why.
That was part of my thinking is you look at it and it's like, well, how? Because they play, we talked about this a little bit, but it's like Zion and Ingram and Valanciunas and McCollum, like, yeah, they're all, better than they've been, but like, how is this happening? It's like Dyson Daniels. I don't think it's just him. So Larry Nance doesn't play enough. So yeah, I think Herb deserves a lot of credit there, and Willie Green for that matter. So who have I nice? Aaron Gordon. I feel like you're not going to have Aaron Gordon, and I understand that, but like the ability for him to play center, I think he's one of maybe the most underrated isolation defenders in the league. I don't know what the numbers are. This is pure eye test. But there's just like, no one ever has an advantage going against him. I feel like regardless of position, unless you're just like Embiid, catches it, at the rim, sure, Gordon's going to struggle there. But on the perimeter, Gordon is not someone you go at. He just swallows up possessions. I just think he's like criminally underrated as a defender. So I got to have him on my second team.
That's a good. I have him on like my ultra long list, but I don't think if we built a third team, which I didn't pencil in, that he would be on mine. I'll throw my second team here all at once. Uh,
Oh, you
the
get KCP. I love it.
So yeah, the matchup difficulty with what he is. So I have AD. That shouldn't be a surprise. Kentavious Caldwell, go look at the matchup difficulty that like just the players he's defending. Lou Dort, though, single-handedly has shouldered the in terms of when you're looking at the guarded usage and just the matchup difficulty per B-ball index. Among anyone to have 1,000 minutes this year, no one has had a heavier defensive workload than Lou Dort. And I think that like there are so many moving parts to the Thunder offense. And I recognize that. I think when you look at a KCP or a Herb Jones, who's also on my second team, or an Alex Caruso, there's like a baseline there, and Lou Dort can drop below that for them. But like his peak to me is just like, oh no, he'll shut down 1 through 4, someone 1 through 4. And Herb Jones is kind of right there, but like just the level of like the volume that he does it at, I feel like Dort does it on a slightly larger scale. I have them both on second team. It's the same difference. I think Herb Jones, we didn't mention him among most improved players. He might have like just given the stuff that he's kind of done as a driver this year and even as a 3-point shooter, like a super deep cut for that. And then Alex Caruso is just, he remains exhaustive, and he was not initially on there. But then hearing you talk about him before in the defensive player of the year discussion, I was like, yeah, I don't know why I'm penalizing him for minutes when he's probably going to log a career high in minutes this year. And I'm pretty sure I had him on an all defense team last season. So there are a lot of, and we went through we already did go through a bunch of different names that could make it. I considered, I think did I actually officially build my third team? I might have. I started to. So I have the 3 toughest cuts for me, I guess, were Jaren Jackson Jr., Chet Holmgren, and I feel like this one might surprise you, but J-Dub.
Oh, really? No, that does surprise me, but I'm not mad at it.
Did you have like anyone that was super tough, like when it came to honorable mentions?
Yeah, I kind of did put together a third team, and then I have literally like 15 snubs that I agonized over. So Jalen Suggs would be on my third team if such a thing existed. Jared Allen would be there. Who do I have? Giannis I put there, and then Chris Dunn and Asar Thompson.
I think you just named 6 players.
Did I? Suggs, Giannis,
Jared Allen, Jalen Suggs. Who else did you have? You had Chris Dunn and Asar.
Yeah.
Wow. You were really high on this rookie class, huh? I would have Jaden McDaniels, who I feel like just slipped a tad this year. Maybe I'm wrong. You could say I don't watch enough of the Wolves. That's fine. He would certainly have made my third team. Who do I want to give my final third team spot? I should be spicy and just go with Aaron Gordon and say that you sold me on it. I feel like I think it comes down to Jared Allen or Dylan Brooks for me, and I just don't know what to do. I'm gonna say Dylan Brooks.
I like
high five or Dylan Brooks.
Can I give you like 50 snubs? We already talked about the sub 65ers, I guess, in defensive player of the year, so we don't need to go through those guys. Dort was a snub. Jaren Jackson was like an impossible snub. I feel terrible that he's not on there. People will be mad if we don't say SGA because he's going to lead the league in steals probably and has just been a good defender. But he can't be on.
Do such a good job of insulating and optimizing him, and that's still an ability, and he's been great. But to say he's been one of the 15 most impactful defenders this year just feels a little like a stretch. I'm not saying you're saying that.
Yeah, that's why he's a snub. So do you know who leads the league in defensive estimated plus minus? It's a certain New York Knicks center.
Is it Isaiah Hartenstein?
It is Isaiah Hartenstein. He's not that, obviously he's not the best defender in the league, but like, I just got to mention him because he's been really good and has been asked to just do stuff that, I mean, can you imagine like 3 years ago that like, this is who Hartenstein has become, where it's just like, yeah, he's the best center on the Knicks. Like that's just,
so watching him with the Clippers, to lead the league in any just catch all defensive metric is wild. So yeah, I recognize that, but this like doesn't surprise me that he is this good. Like I think moving forward, there's a real chance that he makes more sense for them than Mitchell Robinson.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, ranks like 12th in defensive EBM.
Well, and they're both on good contracts, so you can just, I mean, Hardenstein's going to get paid here eventually. Matisse Thybulle, I feel like we just have to, he needs mentioned, even though, you know, nobody's watching him this year and he's still kind of mostly an off-ball guy. Brook Lopez warrants a mention. I think Drew Holiday, Kawhi, Anthony Edwards.
I was gonna say Kawhi has been tough because there's been moments like he's still choosy. It
Yes.
feels like,
Yeah.
so that's why I didn't have him. I do think so. Two players had they. Well, we mentioned OG Anunoby already, right? Like he's
Mhm.
just not gonna make the threshold. When I'm talking about players who aren't gonna make the threshold that I feel like I would have considered, you said Jonathan Isaac, you said Joel Embiid. This is the guy that I'm convinced I might have even had him on first team if you would have told me he played in 65 games this year. Can you guess?
Is it Draymond?
Oh, okay. That's a good one, but that's not it.
I don't. I mean, Claxton, maybe.
No.
I don't have it.
Tari Eason.
Oh yeah, God, what is it? A stress reaction, right? Like he might be done.
Yeah, and like they just seem to not know what's going on. And they said it was Ime Udoka had said that, oh, this isn't the exact words he used, but he kind of fibbed a little bit about how much pain he wasn't in. And I'm like, well, isn't there like someone there to prevent, like to understand, like, oh no, like stuff's like it doesn't feel like they have a great grasp of his injury, is my point. He was nearing, I think there was a report that said he was nearing return on February 1st or around that time. And then like you fast forward coming out of the All-Star break, and like we have no idea what the fuck is going on.
Yeah. Can you imagine if a Rockets lineup that, I mean, I don't know where the scoring is, but like Jabari Smith's going to be, is and is going to be a good defender. You have Brooks, you have Amin Thompson, and you have Tari Eason. Like theoretically, you could play those guys together. I don't know who
Fred
the
Van
fifth
Vliet
guy is.
too. Just
Yeah.
throw him in there.
I mean, arrow
That's
up
the
for the Rockets.
man. If I understand, we could say this every year because let's say Draymond had well, Draymond might be a good case study because if Draymond missed 24 games, like he's probably someone we still would have considered for all defense anyway.
Yeah.
So
I
it's
think
for
per
me.
minute, you have to. His impact since he's been back has been massive. I think the Warriors are top 10 on both ends since he's been back, offense
I
and
will.
defense. So, like,
I will just say I'm trying to feel like remember the last time uh where I said that like if these players had played more, my first team all defense would have looked a lot different. Where it would have been Draymond and Tari Eason. That's like a very wild caveat to say, but it's also just I think Tari Eason is that good, and we know Draymond
yeah,
is that good.
that's probably good, right? I think we've mentioned 30 some odd guys so far.
Hopefully we mentioned Giannis, right? I didn't even maybe he should be on my third team. He's tough. Giannis or Dylan Brooks or Jared Allen or J Dub. Like you could Chris Dunn if he just played more,
Yeah,
certainly.
Dennis Smith Jr. if he'd played more, he's a sub 65 guy, I think. And like if Jimmy Butler, if Jimmy Butler had played more, we'd have to talk about him probably too. I think even Porzingis is, yeah, it's ridiculous. There's way too many good defensive players.
With that, or we just don't know what we're talking about when it comes to defense, which I feel
Well,
like
that
that's
in
where
defense is really freaking hard to evaluate. Like
that's the one, by the way, where it's like I look at the metrics and I'm like, okay, it says this, but I'm inclined to not that my eye test is a lot better. And if someone's showing up like in the same metrics that I tend to trust, I'll weight it. But like that's the one where it feels like purely anecdotal. Like you could look at the steals and the blocks and the rim, like it's easier for bigs because so much of what's quantified for defense, it's most accurate when it comes to what the bigs are doing around the basket stuff is what
yeah,
I'm saying. By the way,
yeah,
you know who's been really good around the basket this year though? Jaden McDaniels. Maybe I should have put him on second team. But
that's true. It's all right. I
um,
got him up there. Between
can
the
I?
two of us, we've accounted for everybody. I'm pretty sure.
Well, no, someone's gonna point out that we like. Why isn't Trae Young on here? Look at how hard he's been trying this year. The way that we've now romanticized Trae Young's defense is a little disgusting. I'm not. I'm not gonna lie.
Is Trae Young most improved? Just because he's
Okay, so we're up to all NBA, and I was thinking about this. So I wanted to ask you because I was trying to think like, well, the way that we went about MVP, like I didn't rank after 5, or I didn't rank after 6, but it's like your top 10 should align with your
yeah.
first 2 NBA teams. And then I'm like, well, does it? Because there's a difference is there a difference? I'm asking you between this player, and I think like maybe a perfect case study is let's look at Jalen Brunson. Is there a difference between, well, this player is so valuable to this team this season versus I'm just looking for who are the 15 best players in the NBA that qualify under the criteria right now? And that made me adjust some of my all NBA returns.
So I think the only distinction I'm pretty sure, and I mentioned this, that I draw between MVP and all NBA is that if you're over the 65 game threshold and you qualify, I really don't care how many minutes you've played. Like I'm just going to cut it off and everything's equal over a certain point. So that's different because, look, like if the word valuable is in the award title, then I have to consider like volume of contribution as it relates to value. And all NBA feels much more like which guys are the best this year. And I think even All NBA has like this element of like, yeah, but who's actually the best? You know, like we'll think about this year mostly, but maybe like 15% of this is kind of like I'm going to nudge you and be like, yeah, but this guy's better. We all know it, right? Like there's some part of that. So All NBA is a little fuzzier in some ways. But the big difference is just the minutes don't really matter to me beyond a certain point.
So I'm going to start. I think we should start here. There are 4 locks for
Yes,
first team All NBA, correct? So I will slot them in accordingly. And I'm assuming these are the same locks that you have.
absolutely.
Now, 5th gets interesting. And I ended up defaulting, though, to who I had 5th on my MVP ballot, which was Donovan Mitchell.
Okay. I have Kawhi in that 5th spot.
Which I feel like if we do this again in a month, I feel like that might be the right answer.
Well, that's ultimately, so that's why I didn't consider Mitchell for this spot really seriously. I thought about Tatum, I thought about Durant, and I thought about Halliburton, and I gave it to Kawhi I like nudged myself and I was like, yeah, but you know who's the best, right? Like it's Kawhi. Let's not mess around. So that I just talked myself into like Kawhi's the scariest two-way guy in the league sometimes still, and I'm not going to not put him there if he's healthy.
So I considered, because I was, like I said, trying to move away from value, and it was like the same with the minutes. So I considered Tyrese here. I considered Kevin Durant here. And I had a mini discussion on YouTube, the YouTube comments with Rubik's Gal, about I might just be discounting because he just felt like, I don't want to say an actively damaging defender for the first part of the year, but just not as engaged. And I'm now wondering like, well, that was probably because Booker and Beal were injured for a good part of that first stretch. But Durant, Kawhi was there. I look at Donovan Mitchell though, and I just really do appreciate the level of creation and table setting he shouldered for so much of this year during those injuries. And I do think while you shouldn't be detracting from other players because their team wasn't injured, that the anecdotal element of it can still give you a bump. I do think that his spot might be flimsy as well. And I was actually I was reading or listening to someone, I can't remember now, that was doing all NBA teams, and Donovan Mitchell wasn't even on like their 3rd team.
Wow.
And that felt like egregious to me. Is that egregious or no? Was he fringe for you?
No, Mitchell was a no-brainer second teamer for me. He's easily on the second team, along with Tatum and Durant and Halliburton, because I thought about those guys for first team.
So you had Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, and Halliburton on your second team, along with Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah.
Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, and Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah.
Which is just, I ended up cutting him from my second team, and I'm still just like not feeling great about it. I did have Tatum. I had Durant. Donovan Mitchell was on my first team. I had Kawhi Leonard was there too. So that aligns. This is what it came down to for me is I was thinking Halliburton, LeBron, and Devin Booker were like the players that these final 2 spots came down. And you have one more spot left, right?
I do. And you haven't mentioned this player yet.
Anthony Davis?
No.
Steph Curry?
It is Steph Curry.
Steph Curry. I get that. I just feel like and maybe this is part of the Warriors' construction, that he just hasn't been as thermonuclear AF on the offensive end, like the ability to uplift imperfections with Golden State. But I don't know if that's just like anecdotally untrue. I mean, you look at the numbers and the 3-point volume and the efficiency and the way he bends defenses. I'm not gonna quibble with you.
Yeah, I mean the numbers are down. It's just that like they're down to 28, 4 and 5 on 41% shooting on it's from deep. Like he's still, to me, I still think we're kind of bad at appreciating like what he does to defenses. Still, like somehow I don't know. We're like 15 years into this thing, and it's still like we don't totally appreciate how great he is. I think LeBron. So I mean, I might as well just everybody you talked about is like going to be on my 3rd team. So maybe if you go with your 3rd team, like so you said LeBron's second team. I have him on 3rd team. I have Booker on the 3rd team. I don't know if I have anybody else from your second team.
So yeah, I'll throw my 3rd team up there so that I can type yours in. But I have Tyrese Halliburton's. I feel like he should be on the second team for me. The defensive deficiencies, and he's been, since he's come back from injury, just not as good. Yep. And so I'm just looking at LeBron and by the way, I think honestly, I know I had LeBron ahead of Booker in the MVP ballot, but I probably am more likely if you said, no, you have to move Tyrese on the second team, I'm probably bouncing LeBron or Tatum before Booker. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, I value his playmaking so much and the stuff that he can, even when he's off the ball, where he's more likely to move than a than a KD there. But you said you had LeBron on the third team.
I do have Jalen Brunson on my third team.
That was so Jalen Brunson's case is interesting because I feel like he's the quintessential. His case as most valuable is stronger than an all NBA case because I do think there might be people that leave him off. And like, look, he has the numbers there. When you're looking at someone who's going to average 25 plus, 6+ assists, he's hitting his off the dribble threes, but like he doesn't give you a lot defensively. And it feels like a lot of his case is propped up by, well, look how many minutes he played, or look at how much isn't around him in New York. And I absolutely think that matters when it comes to MVP. It didn't like matter to me as much when talking about all NBA.
Yeah. Okay. So you have LeBron and Jalen Brunson for me. I have Anthony Davis is on my third team.
He was my first cut, and I feel awful about it. But like the offensive juice just isn't there for me, and I don't know how to. He's been available, which I appreciate. And I think he's been great defensively, but I couldn't. He was among my first tough cuts.
I have Booker on my third team. I was thinking like, oh my God, did I forget him? No, he's a third teamer for me. And who's my, this last spot was brutal. It ultimately is going to be Anthony Edwards for me. But the toughest cuts, which will be just on my next team. I'm not going to lie. I thought about Wembanyama. I thought about Sabonis.
I was wondering if we could talk about Anthony Edwards really quickly.
Sure.
I think some people might look the fact that the Timberwolves might have the second best record in the league when all said and done, and they would only have one all NBA player is a little bit weird, but that's what happens when you get rid of positions. Otherwise Rudy might've had a case to beat AD. Mm-hmm. And that's, by the way, that's who this hurts, was like the Rudy Gobert, Sabonis, Anthony Davis tier by getting rid of bigs. And obviously it had Embiid if we had stuck to the previous criteria, two of those guys would have made it. Because Embiid, I just don't think would have logged enough time this season to have factored in. Mm-hmm. But when I look at Anthony Edwards, there's stuff I wish he did more of. The off the dribble scoring efficiency when it comes to his jumper is not super high, but he's close to 38% from three all year. And I think we might underestimate how he's not throwing these necessarily flashy passes, but he is so important to driving the offense for the Timberwolves. I know Mike Conley receives a lot of credit, but like when you play Conley without Anthony Edwards, the Timberwolves offense ranks in like the 18th percentile. When you play Edwards without Conley, their offense ranks in the 93rd percentile. Like that's a big deal because he's still working within dual big lineups there. And it's not like they're not playing vastly different just Edwards lineups versus just Conley lineups. Like the pairings, when you look at the most used of the other four that are mixed and matched, they're largely the same. Like they're going to consist of the same combination of other guys. So the efficiency isn't always there with him relative to others. And the turnovers, I do think he's part of the issues with Minnesota, but I absolutely think he belongs on third team all NBA for his body of work this season. And I don't know if this is like a moot discussion. Like maybe it doesn't, like he'll just be there anyway, but like you're looking at someone who's averaging 27 points, 5 assists. And do you wish he was scoring a little bit higher on his twos? Maybe, but his true shooting is still at for the year. What is he at on true? 58.8. It's like, it's not super high, but it's good enough. I think he should be an all NBA lock though. I'm pretty
lock. And it was harder than that for me. But like, I think it helps his case. Like I think you'd find people that say he, not McDaniels, has been the second best defensive player on the Wolves this year. I'm not ready to get there. I think you mentioned it. Like Edwards kind of toggles the switch a little bit. Like, I think John Krasinski recently wrote I think John's one of the best beat writers in the league, but it very much felt like Edwards guys got in his ear and were like, you got to talk about this guy's defense. And there were no numbers involved. It was very anecdotal, but it did talk about how like he turns it on and it's like, oh my God, nobody can do anything with this guy, which is true. So I think if you're trying to split hairs, the fact that Edwards can be, but is not always, a really like lights out defensive player, that helps for sure.
Where else did we end up differing is you have Anthony Davis, which I outlined. He was among one of my, he was right there.
I think it's just that you
Davis
had Fox
versus Fox.
I had Davis.
Yeah. Fox I know the efficiency has come down, but he's been better defensively this year. He can still take and make really difficult shots. He is a driving force of that offense, whether you're trying to get out in transition, operate early in the shot clock, or if you need to make something out of nothing. He's been like, he's not going to win clutch player of the year again, but he's had some, like, especially in the month of February, he was just annihilatory during crunch time. And I think that I know Sabonis has these monster lines, and Sabonis was a tough cut for me. So I had 4 players that I have as locks is like, all right, I need to mention these guys if there was a 4th team.
Oh
And
man.
they are Anthony Davis, Domas Sabonis. I think James Harden has quietly been great for the most part in LA. And then Kristaps just keeps popping up in all these discussions, and he's like 2 games away or whatever it is from
Yeah.
being ineligible. But for right now, he was a tougher cut for me. Sabonis's numbers are just so like he's averaging over 8 assists per game, but
Yeah.
the limitations that he poses both on offense and defense, when you just look at some of the spacing or the shots he won't take, let's say it that way. And then just defensively, yeah, the Kings, there's been defensive improvement, but like Sabonis, aside from his rebounding, is not coaxing that out of them at all.
Dan, I'm so tired of you dumping on Sabonis and me having to prop this guy
I'm not.
up.
I just had him as my 4th team All NBA. Consider I'm not.
No, this is usually my bit where I have to like halfway apologize for everything I say about Sabonis. Like, I've talked enough about him. He makes my hypothetical 4th team.
Oh, does he? I'm actually pleasantly. I'm proud of you.
Well, I feel like look, I'm overcorrecting. I still don't believe in him as a like, you can't max this guy out. He cannot be one of your highest paid players on a team that's going to do anything. But awesome statistical year. Plays like the other thing, like things I praise other players for that I just overlook with Sabonis is like plays really hard, like, and just seems like he really is invested in like making other players better. Like, I love those things. I just don't give him enough credit for them. So I'm trying to be better, Dan.
Did anybody else on my 4th team make your 4th team?
Well, I had Davis on my 2nd or 3rd. I did not have Harden. He was a tough cut. I have Chet on my 4th team.
All right. I mean, I think he's mentioned. He's mentioned off to the side of mine where like I have Chet and Paul George and Trae Young and Dame Lillard. Like, I don't know who to give my final honorable mention spot to.
Oh, I have Wemby on my 4th team, by the way. I forgot. How did I say Chet first? So Chet, Wemby, and then these last 2, I just, as you'll see, there's like 15, 20 more guys. I don't have Porzingis just because I'm assuming he's not going to get to the games played. I don't know what I would do if he, weren't so close, but I do have Paul George, and I actually have Lauri Markkanen.
Okay. What do you make of, like, should Rudy Gobert be here? He's our runaway defensive player of the year.
Yeah. I don't feel like he was not a real serious I thought about him, but not a super serious consideration for me, just because I kind of think some of the Wolves' offensive issues do tie to him. Okay. I think like that if you're like, he's, he has his uses offensively, but ultimately if like, the offense is gummed up and the turnovers are an issue, and like, I think that's a lot of him, because it just still defies logic that Conley, Edwards, McDaniels, and Cat like can't find ways to score unless there's some weird impediment. And I kind of think that might be Gobert.
Yeah, so I thought about Gobert, Paul George, Trae Young, Holmgren, Wemby. I also thought about Pascal Siakam, popped up in the consideration. I mentioned Damian Lillard, I think, before. I just don't even know. I'm going to let you pick. I thought about Derek White here. I thought about Lauri Markkanen. I thought about Tyrese Maxey. I'm going to let you pick who I put here. You're deciding who makes my All NBA 4th team. Who's my final?
Give me like 3 guys.
Fox as a consideration.
Fox was a consideration. I think I was going to take, if I was going to take a king, normally I would say, I still think Fox is like a better player, but Sabonis I think has had a better season. Fox is kind of down across a lot of categories this season. You have to do you not have Paul George? I think you probably better put Paul George.
All right. I think that's fair. He was among my long list. I don't like, if you just forced me to choose, I don't even know who I would choose. I wouldn't pick Trae Young. I think that I feel like people have either swung in either direction too far on him, but he might not hit the game's minimum with that shoulder injury. So I didn't necessarily want to include him. Even Kristaps as a placeholder is a little bit dangerous. Like, part of me just feels like there's still something off with Dame. Jimmy Butler's not going to hit the game's threshold. I want it to be spiteful and just put Joel Embiid just to say like, hey, whatever, that's what we're doing. So I'm comfortable. You could have told me anybody. I've been like, the only ones I would have given you pushback on is if you picked Wemby or Chet, because I can't have just one of them on the 4th team.
Yeah, right. That's for sure. If you picked one and not the other, you'd be in trouble. I'm trying to think of who we haven't mentioned. I mean, Kyrie is affected by the games played. If you had gotten 65 out of him, he'd be in the
Which,
conversation.
by the way, he was someone when I was doing like the statistical work. I know Kyrie's own numbers, but looking at the kitchen sink metrics, he is someone who, if he played in more games, might have been considered a statistical lock for a third
Yeah.
team All NBA.
We haven't mentioned, I don't think we mentioned Bam. Like I didn't really think too hard, but just a J-Dub, I think you could talk about if we're down to like fifth team now. Maxey, Zion, Ingram, Bridges hasn't had a great year. Scotty Barnes, if we're talking about like fifth team or whatever.
Scotty Barnes, that's a good
that's
one.
the extent of my long list.
Yeah, I don't feel great about my honorable mentions this year. I feel like Davis, Sabonis, and Harden are like the ones and like, by the way, Harden just continues to pop up like near all the top of the catch-all metrics. And
Yes.
it's tough because it impacts the team he's playing with now, definitely impacts the discussion around him from a value proposition perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of him just being really good and more adaptable, like you have to tip the cap for most of the work that he's done in LA.
I think I got to say that maybe we talked about Tyronn Lue a little bit in the Coach of the Year discussion. Two guys that I never thought could change like in a fundamental way are on this Clippers team. And I think you can credit Lou for getting them to be like the best versions of their current selves, which is like Russ and Harden. Like I thought Russ was never going to be able to change. He kind of has. It was reluctant. And Harden is just like, this is as good as Harden can be right now with his like current physical skill. And I just didn't think that he was willing to be this player, just to be like the facilitating point guard that shoots threes super accurately and doesn't like do too much. So I think that's a credit to him. Harden is someone like was maybe one of the toughest cuts. I probably had him on like third team at some point, and then I just kind of decided that Brunson needs to be there over him or something.
I will say this kind of reinforced that I'm happy I do not have an official vote.
Yeah, it's brutal because this is a money vote. Like this is
I like kind of people said that Zach Lowe gave up his vote. I think did he keep his All NBA vote? They said he gave up his vote because he doesn't watch enough basketball anymore, which is just a bonkers thing to say about Zach Lowe.
Yeah, if he doesn't, what are we all doing?
I wouldn't want to have to agonize over this in terms of impacting a player's legacy or contract. And so I very much like being in our armchairs, our computer chairs, and just being incorrect and it having zero ramifications on us or other people.
Yeah, right. We're not going to cost someone $50 million or whatever Halliburton's up for.
Yeah,
we did it,
Halliburton
right?
and Anthony Edwards, those are the names that are like, because we know that Ja is just like that ship sailed already. Those are the ones where it's like both of them, they probably should make it. I feel like it might be more of a debate with Anthony Edwards, though.
Yeah, for sure. Because what is he? Well, I guess he made it pretty comfortably for you. It was harder for me to put him on there.
We are on to stat padding, which is guess a player. Did you want to start us off? Thank you for everyone who sent us submissions. Did you want to start us off while I change the assets on screen? As we
sure. All right, these are as all well, not as always. I got 3 here from Mike. It's Hernishin, right? I think I said Herinshin first, but it's Hernishin. Sorry about that. The first time. I hope I haven't done these. I'm pretty sure I haven't. If I have and you still don't get them, then they were really good clues. All right. Clue number 1, Dan. I was drafted in the all-time great 2003 draft. Do you want to just throw a dart?
I was drafted. You didn't give me a number.
Nope. Just he's in the 03 draft.
Okay.
Clue number 2. I missed my entire rookie season to surgeries on both shoulders. You have to have a
shoulders.
Pretty good memory to remember that one.
Yeah, I got nothing here.
All right, clue number 3. My first season, I played all 82 games, starting 4. By the way, I would play 82 games twice in my career, and 4 times I played more than 80 games in a season. So pretty durable, despite 2 wrecked shoulders.
Still got nothing.
Clue 4. By my 3rd season, I became a starter for more than 2/3 of my team's games. However, every season afterwards, my team added more young stars to the rotation. This took away starters' minutes for me, and by 2011, I was a full-fledged bench guy, 2 starts in 71 games.
Oh my God, this is bad.
There's nothing there for you yet. The shoulder thing is the only, I vaguely remember that. Clue 5. By 2013, I was largely a bench warmer. However, I was the ultimate teammate, something that has been my legacy with the franchise.
With the franchise. My God. Is it Udonis Haslem? Was he 2003?
It is not Udonis Haslem, but I will say you're barking up you're in the vicinity of the correct tree to be barking up. Clue number 6. I retired in 2018, having only played with the team that drafted me, starting 177 out of 910 games, averaging 6 points a game and 5 boards.
Should I know this by now?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if you didn't get the shoulders thing, and this is a one franchise guy for a really long time that was regarded as a great teammate, but that's going to be tough. Clue 7. There's only 2 more clues, so we're in crunch time here. Gary Payton's number isn't retired by the team I played for, but mine is. I did not know this. I did not know Gary Payton's number is not retired by this team. That is kind of nuts.
It's not retired by that team. So is it? Oh my God, Nick Collison?
You got it, Nick Collison. Good job.
I was like Sonics, Thunder, and that's how I got there.
Number 8 was Kenrich Williams is viewed as the next me by the organization. You really need to get it on that page.
Williams is a superstar. Maybe not so much the season, but
that's right. I am Nick Collison. I'm pretty sure I haven't done that one before.
No, I mean I didn't. If I didn't remember it after that.
All right, you want another one?
Yeah, you want to do 3 each? Well, I have. Yeah.
Well, you want to alternate? You want to give me
let's
one?
alternate. So I'll do one from. We have some from Bill. We have some from Mike. This one's from Mike.
Okay.
Clue 1. I was a number 1 pick in the 1990s.
Okay. I'm not going to guess you. Well, I got a number 1 overall, or does it like number 1?
So you're only talking about what, 10 drafts?
Why am I blanking on top overall picks in the 90s? Tim Duncan.
No.
Okay.
Clue 2. I was not one of the good ones.
Uh-oh. Who was a really big bust in the 90s? This is bad. Sometimes I can tell if my brain's not working very well. It feels like this is one of those days. So he's a bust number 1 overall pick from the 90s. Go ahead.
Clue 3. I famously told Kareem Abdul-Jabbar that he was disrespecting my game when my team brought him in to be a mentor for me.
My team brought him in to be a mentor for me. Glenn Robinson?
No. Clue 4. I probably shouldn't have done that because he then became an assistant coach and labeled me as talented but uncoachable.
Oh my God. I should just be able to go through number 1 picks from the 90s, right? I feel like maybe, is it Derek Coleman?
No.
He was an 80s number 1 pick, I think. Okay.
Clue 5. After that self-inflicted mess, I was traded to Minnesota to team up with Kevin Garnett, who was more than happy to put up with my crap. Just kidding. He didn't like me either.
I should get it right now. A number 1 pick from the 90s that played with Kevin Garnett. I mean, it's not... I want to say Darko because he played for the Wolves, but he's not the number 1 overall pick. He was...
And he was also drafted in 2003.
Oh, right. Yeah, that was stupid. Gosh, I should get this. Who was a number 1 pick that played with Kevin Garnett in Minnesota? This is embarrassing.
No, I mean the name, like if you were just going to take stabs at number 1 picks, then yeah, but especially if they were bust. Clue 6. I was suspended by the Timberwolves for 2 games after I was arrested for refusing to leave an Indianapolis nightclub. I did not know this, so if you know this, kudos to you.
Is it Joe Smith?
It is not.
He was a number 1 pick too, I think. What was the sorry, I decided it was Joe Smith while you were reading the clue. What was that clue again?
I was suspended by the Wolves for 2 games after I was arrested for refusing to leave an Indianapolis nightclub.
It's Michael Olowokandi.
That is correct. The final 2 clues were I was also suspended for fighting Nene, and I was traded with Wally Serbiak to the Celtics for Ricky Davis and bench fodder, where I finished out my incredibly underwhelming career, averaging 8-6 in 500 career games.
Man, I should have just if I should have just gone with the busts from the 90s. That would have got to him eventually. Okay, that was too many clues. Okay, no guess a player number 2 for you. Clue number 1. Actually, I should look and see who this is. Okay, now I know. I was drafted by the Raptors, but traded on draft day for Jermaine O'Neal.
Ooh. I was drafted by the Raptors. I got nothing. Go ahead.
I did not know that. Number 2. In my second season, I averaged 1.6 blocks a game, a beacon of things to come. So we
Keep
got
going.
a shot blocker. Number 3, by year 4, I was averaging 2 blocks a game, was a first-time All-Star, and had a playoff game in which I had 9 blocks. This season got me a nice 4 for $58 million contract.
Eric Dampier?
No. Damn. Let's see. Yeah, I guess you don't really have the year yet. But 4 for 58 gives you, like, it's fairly modern because guys weren't making that much that long ago. Clue number 4. In the first year of that contract, I broke the franchise record for blocks in a game with 11 en route to another All-Star selection and coming in second in Defensive Player of the Year voting. But that postseason, I set the record for most scoreless playoff games by a current All-Star with 4.
Oh my God. That's not
That's a good clue.
scoreless by an All-Star. Who's an
And it
All-Star
was
that's
second in Defensive Player of the Year.
Ben Wallace?
No, that's a good guess though.
No, keep going.
All right. Clue 5. That offseason, the wheels started to come off. First, Andrew Bynum was brought in to give me extra incentive to play my best, but it messed with my head. Then it was rumored the team's star player was sleeping with my fiance. I did not know this, but he and I quashed the rumors by going fishing together. True story.
Andrew Bynum was brought in to give me a good influence. Why am I not? No, Smush Parker?
No.
No, he was never an All-Star. Please disregard that. And
Chris
not
Parker never had 11 blocks in a playoff game either. Clue 6. The following season went poorly for me, the team and everyone around it. I took my player options, sullying my team's plans for free agency when the cap spiked. They traded me to the Lakers 2 weeks later for a second-round pick 4 years in the future.
Nothing.
So this guy goes from second in Defensive Player of the Year, blocking 11 shots.
Roy Hibbert?
Correct. It is Roy Hibbert.
That was a little embarrassing.
Really, because we were both working for BR when Hibbert was happening. And then he just talk about wrong place, wrong time. Because within a year, it was you can't play this type of player anymore. But he was dominant. He was the Pacers' second.
It was Pero Antic ended his career basically.
That's right. Pero Antic, by the way, who has been a guest player before. All right. Whew, good clues.
So both of yours were from Mike, right?
I have one more from Mike, so that'll be 3 total. Yeah.
All right. So I'll do 2. We'll alternate to me, and I'll do my 2 from B Rich. So I'll do one from B Rich, and then you can do Mike. Then we'll do the last one from B Rich. Okay. Clue 1. A non-lottery first-round pick in 2005. I played for 8 teams in 12 seasons.
Okay.
In 2007, 2008, I had the pleasure of, for 51 games, being teammates with Greg Buckner. We went 11-41 together and combined started 4 games. Buckner started all 4.
I don't know where Greg Buckner is in 2007-8. If we've established anything, it's that we don't know anything about Greg Buckner.
We just need to read up on Greg Buckner before the next podcast so that we can get any guess player that might be tangentially related to him. Clue 3. I'm one of the few players in NBA history to take a 2-year hiatus early in my career to play pro ball in Russia.
Oh. Drafted outside the lottery in
05.
05. Goes to play for 2 years in Russia. And played with Greg Buckner, of course. I can't. Okay, so I don't have it.
Clue 4. A late bloomer. My best NBA season was with the Suns in 2013, 2014, when I averaged close to 16 points per game and shot 40% from 3 while starting 48 games, which was a career high.
13-14 Suns.
Yes.
Outside the lottery 05. 13-14 Suns. What are the stats again for that year?
16 points on 40% from 3.
Oh, that doesn't tell me rebounds or assists. Who's on the 13-14 Suns that played in Russia? Don't have it.
Okay, clue 5. Like Rudy Gay, I was a contestant in the 2008 dunk contest, but did not win. Some say I was robbed, as one of my dunks involved a common dessert at kid birthday parties.
Is this Gerald Green?
It is.
Okay. I mean, if I don't get it on that clue, that's ridiculous.
And then his final clue, which he said is for use after the answer is revealed. In further proof that basketball reference similarity scores are nonsense, my most similar player is Brian Shaw.
Yeah. Give me the most athletic player of all time and the least. Okay.
All right.
I do love Gerald Green. All right. This is the last one here from Mike. Okay, now that I know who it is. Clue number 1. I was a top 10 pick in 2008. Want to take a stab at that one?
In 2008 and was a top 10 pick. No, I don't want to take a stab.
I would have known that. All right. No, clue number 2. At the time, I was seen as the NBA's next best shooting guard. And in my first 3 years, I was already being called Kobe's heir apparent for that label. I'm not sure who was saying these things.
Yeah, I don't remember that happening around 2008. So please carry on.
Clue 3, I was part of a very famous trade that's too obvious to name without giving it away. I got hurt almost right away with that team, and the injury bug bit me continuously for the better part of a half decade, where I only hit 65 games in a season once.
Yeah, I got nothing.
All right. Clue 4, in 2016, I found my footing again in the league as a sixth man on the what is a 2-point shot Houston Rockets.
What year?
2016 finds his footing.
2016. You know, the Kobe clue is throwing me off because I'm thinking about that team.
Disregard the Kobe clue. I think that's going to hurt you.
Okay. Sixth man on that Rockets team.
And part of a trade that like you, if you were told who else was in the trade, you would probably get him.
What did they say? What year that trade was made?
No, but he was drafted in 08, and then is hurt like forever, and then in 2016 like finds a spot with these Rockets.
I should know. That's the clue that I should know, and I got nothing.
All right,
it's not Luka Bamute, is it?
No, the next clue. Well, okay. Clue 5 in 2018, I was one of the Rockets that missed several threes in the infamous 27 missed in a row game.
PJ Tucker, was he there then?
I think he was there, but it is not PJ Tucker. This is a shooting guard. Remember,
shooting guard. Trevor Ariza wasn't a shooting guard. Oh, Eric Gordon.
Correct. Yeah.
He was compared to Kobe.
I guess that's why I was like,
I was thinking about that the entire time. Not gonna lie.
I'm sure somebody compared him to Kobe. Mike's gonna have to get on Discord and show some receipts on who was calling Eric Gordon the next Kobe. Just for fun. Clue 6. That was my last healthy season in Houston as I played 63 combined games the next 2 seasons. Then James Harden got traded, and over time I was the last vestige remaining from the Daryl Morey Rockets. Clue 7. Spent all of my 22-23 time with the Rockets, refusing to mentor the young players until I was traded at the deadline. Oh, what? Clue 8. I played Michael Jordan's kid in Space Jam.
What? I did not know that. That's a hell of a clue, Mike.
What a tidbit. I didn't know that either.
That's incredible.
The clue I would have included, I mean, you can't, because I think it's the Chris Paul trade that he's talking about. The other thing was like,
this player would have been a good one.
Well, yeah, the thing where, what was it like? Was it New Orleans?
To force his way to Phoenix as a restricted free agent.
That's what it was. Yeah. Okay. Eric Gordon. Fun fact: one of Eric Gordon's nicknames on B-Ball Reference is the Hobbit. I think I actually knew that.
That's fucked up. He's not even that small. All right. Final one of this batch. Thank you, B Rich and Mike, for sending them. Again, if you have more, send them to Grant or I. Shout out to Rubik's Gal Mike and B Rich who consistently do them. Let's get some more people involved in it. Okay, Grant, are you in the mind of a sociopath?
I think it's psychopath, but I've been getting stumped. I'm in the mind of just, whatever mind I need to be in. I'm ready.
Yeah, well, I hope this one gets you because you're still kind of messed up for on stat padding, getting me with the LeBron and Kobe thing where they both had 0 5x4 games or whatever.
Is that a hint? Should I take
that? No, I'm just saying I want you to get this wrong because you're a sociopath for doing that.
Got it.
Okay, clue 1. A 2005 second rounder. My draft pick was traded 3 times prior to me being drafted, one of which included the immortal Tim Thomas. So one of those trades included Tim Thomas.
Yeah, okay. I'm not getting that one.
I would if Tim Thomas is out there. Let me know how you trained your delts back in the day because you had some pretty big ass shoulders. Clue 2. I played for 7 teams across 10 seasons, primarily as an off the bench big man.
Off the bench big man, second rounder from 05, traded a lot. Would you say 7 seasons? That's it?
7 teams in 10 seasons.
7 teams in 10 seasons. Okay. So he's done by 15. All right. What is the next clue, please?
Clue 3. In my 3rd season, my storied franchise lost in the finals. During that playoff run, I averaged 10 minutes per game off the bench and had an effective field goal percentage of 38.9.
Drafted 05, his 3rd season. So we're in 08, loses in the finals in 08. What is that?
Celtics.
The Celtics. Oh, you just told me the team?
Oh, sorry. No, I'm just like the champion of that year was the Celtics.
I was going to say it's the Lakers or the Celtics. I can't remember who was in there. Okay, a big guy that got traded a lot, drafted 05. Oh, wait, yeah, 05, so 6, 7, 8. What were the numbers again? I don't know why it would help me, but
10 minutes per game with an effective field goal percentage of 38.9.
Okay, what's the next clue?
Clue 4. My best season was my 5th season when I averaged 6 points and 5 boards in 21 minutes per game. I was subsequently traded along with Kalene Azubuike, Anthony Randolph, and a 2nd-round pick for David Lee.
Oh, okay. So it's a Warrior guy going to the Knicks that was on. Who the hell else went? God damn it. It's a. So wait, I've still hung up on. So he was a Laker, I guess, that became a Warrior that went to the Knicks. That was a big guy and it was a journeyman. This is, God damn it. This is so diabolical. Like, I hate that, like, Bill is so good at picking players that I definitely know, but are like just obscure enough that I can't get there.
There's one more clue, and I think this, based off what it says, I think you're going to get it.
Oh, well, then I'd like to get it before that. I just can't remember who else went with Azubuike, Randolph, and who else for
2nd-round pick for David
and a
Lee.
2nd-round pick for David Lee. It's not Ike Diagu. It's not Patrick. Oh, I keep thinking of like Warriors, big guys that were stiffs. Okay, what's the last clue?
Clue number 5, 5th and final one. A 4-year star for a WCC powerhouse. One of my claims to fame was cooking lasagna in the kitchen of a packed frat house during a party at Santa Clara, entertaining dozens, including freshman Adam Morrison, with stories about dating French girls.
Oh, as I recall, this guy also, I think he put ranch on spaghetti or something. This is Roni Turioff.
Correct.
God.
I'm glad you seem to hate yourself, though, because that's what I was.
really did. I'm trying to think now. He's good at making the clues like, okay, that's helpful.
This exercise, I hope the listeners enjoy it because we feel like shit after every time we go through it.
Right.
I called Smush. There was clues about a big center and shot blocking and was made an all-star game. And I said Smush Parker.
A lot of people confuse Roy Hibbert and Smush Parker, to be fair. There would be some great Smush Parker clues if anyone ever did those. But now we're going to be on the lookout for Smush Parker.
Before you go win your CrossFit Open, would you like to take us out of here?
I would love to take us out. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks for your submissions for Guess a Player. We really do got to get that Discord thing going for all NBA. I'm super curious to see like if we could get some kind of consensus.
I'll do it like, because I don't want people you don't want to vote and then have it locked in. Mm-hmm. Maybe sometime in April, at the start of April, because there's like only 2 weeks left of the regular season. I'll do a crowdsourcing, and that could be part of that'll be a good way to differentiate from what we just did too, to include what our listeners. So, hey, look at Grant plugging the Discord. Proud of you.
Yeah. Get involved. If you would like to figure out how to join our Discord and or get some merch, links for that in YouTube and podcast description. Rate, review, subscribe, follow, tell your friends. Just help us grow this podcast. We're grateful for the viewers and listeners we have. We would just like to have as many as we possibly can. So you can help us do that by spreading the word. I think that's going to cover it. We close as always with a shout out to the one and only Frank Ntilikina and an apology to Jared Allen.